Chapter 1420. Even though Chen Taishu had only seen Chen Hao fight twice, every single move of Chen Hao's contained various Dao laws that were unfathomable and of various attributes. This was sufficient to prove that Chen Hao didn't specialize in a Dao that was suitable for him at all. However, Chen Hao gave Chen Taishu the feeling that he was at ease and wasn't affected by the various Dao laws at all. He comprehended various Dao laws to the limit and cultivated them to the limit. Simply put, Chen Wuyang's soul force and comprehension were unable to control his martial emperor body, resulting in a lack of mastery. On the other hand, Chen Hao was at ease. Despite the various Daos, he was still able to master them. How big was the gap between their talents? This kid has hidden his strength well. If I didn't know that he was on par with Xian Xian, and that he was facing Xian before he reached the peak realm, who would have known that he had the strength to fight against Chen Tianhe, who was ranked first? Now that he has reached the peak realm, his absolute strength has not been fully exposed. Plus, his battle skills can only be described as abnormal. There shouldn't be a problem. The pupil has surpassed the master? No, it's more of the little fatty's innate talent. Even I was inferior to the little fatty back then. What is the relationship between me and the little fatty? My daughter. My daughter. He was born from my daughter. No one knew that at this moment. Princess Ying was more excited than anyone else. Because at this moment, she had learned everything about Chen Hao, Yilan, and her own daughter through Si Xian. How could she not be excited? At this moment, Princess Ying was more concerned about Chen Hao than anyone else. Not only was he her beloved disciple, but he also had a close relationship with her daughter. He was the key to finding her daughter. How could she not be concerned? After learning the details from Si Xian, Princess Ying had decided to do her best to protect Chen Hao's life, even if she had to fall out with the Xinghe king. She could not allow him to be devoured by Chen Tianhe, who had been controlled by evil thoughts. Inside the competition space, Chen Hao, who still hadn't revealed his absolute strength, had never thought that his battle would bring such a shock to everyone, especially the Star River King, Chen Taishu, Prince Ying, and the other top experts. They saw unparalleled potential and infinite hope in him. Is it my turn? Chen Qi took a deep breath. Despite the vastness of Mount Pear, he still walked proudly toward Chen Hao and said excitedly, "You think you have hope? Unless I'm dead, I won't give up hope, even if there is only a sliver of possibility." Very good. As expected of the lifespan that I have completely comprehended. You are also very good, as expected of my original body. I underestimated you before. You are indeed stronger than me in every aspect. My epiphany and the speed of my advancement are all under your influence. Even though I feel like I comprehended it on my own. I just found out too. I also just discovered that I don't have the ability to control you with my origin. So, I can't not give you a fair chance. Perhaps when I gave birth to you, I wanted you to become me so much that we really didn't distinguish between each other, and became equal existences. Is that so? It doesn't matter. I've always been living in your shadow. Even if I win, I'll still love you, like what you like, and do what you want. If I lose, what you do is also what I want to do. It's just that I'll drag out an ignoble existence. Now that I have my own consciousness, I naturally want to make decisions for myself. No matter what, meeting you in advance is an opportunity for you and me. Fusion is the key, don't you think? That's right. I promise you, I won't erase any of your thoughts. Chen Hao said. Let's talk about it after you win. Don't underestimate me. Make your move, Chen Qi said. However, although Chen Qi said he would make his move, his aura didn't soar. Instead, it was strangely restrained. Only the space between his eyebrows began to tremble slightly. Come to me, Chen Hao said. You are big and real. Aren't you afraid that I will cheat as a controller? I know myself. Chen Qi smiled slightly. If Chen Qi was still very jealous of Chen Hao before, and wanted to fight to the death with him, then at this moment, after a short communication with Chen Hao, Chen Qi didn't have any jealousy. He saw the amazing talent of the original body, sensed that his epiphany came from the original body, and saw himself in Chen Hao. After the conversation, he was even more certain of this. Their hearts were connected. Chen Qi felt that he could guess what the original body was thinking. Similarly, Chen Hao could naturally guess what he was thinking. And this was under the premise that the two of them didn't have a connection at all. This made Chen Qi suddenly feel that it wasn't important whether he could defeat the original body, or not to prove himself. He was the original body, and the original body was him. The only difference was that they each had their own independent consciousness, and different experiences over the years. Chen Qi had a feeling, or rather, both Chen Hao and Chen Qi had a feeling that their fusion would be flawless. Just as Chen Qi had said, what the original body loved was what he loved. What the original body wanted to do was what he wanted to do. Even if there were some ideas that belonged to each of them, they were born from different experiences. Only through fusion, no matter who was the dominant consciousness, they would accept the other's ideas. Very well, I also know myself. Chen Hao also smiled. Unfortunately, with his fat appearance, his smile was on a completely different level compared to the handsome Chen Qi. However, at this moment, no one cared about the fat man's appearance. The 2 consecutive live broadcasts and the terrifying strength that the fat man showed, especially when he defeated Xiao Manxia, made the fat man's image imperceptibly carry a dazzling halo. In the eyes of young women, he bloomed with endless charm. At this time, Chen Hao and Chen Qi did not hide their words and clearly passed into the ears of the audience. However, except for those who were familiar with Chen Hao, many people were confused by the conversation between the two. Even some of the masters on the rostrum who did not know what was going on were a little confused by the conversation between the two. However, after hearing the conversation between the two, the Star River King fell into contemplation, as if he had understood something. This was a realm that even his 9-life profound technique did not have. Independent existences, no one can control the other through the origin, but their hearts are connected and they appreciate each other. Chen Hao's glabella suddenly shook, and a bright light shot directly into Chen Hao's glabella. At first, countless people exclaimed, thinking that Chen Qi had used some kind of killing move, which made the fat man unable to react. However, when the bright light directly merged into the fat man's glabella, nothing terrible happened. Chen Hao and Chen Qi both smiled and closed their eyes at the same time. Chapter 14:21. Fight. But Chen Hao, who didn't want to expose his true strength, and Chen Hao, who didn't want Chen Hao or himself to expose their true strength, chose Chen Hao's mind space as their battlefield. Only now did everyone understand the fatty and Chen Qi's fighting style. Although Chen Qi wasn't even a seed master on this level, everyone already recognized his powerful image when he entered an epiphany and stood proudly near the battle. Naturally, they wouldn't think that Chen Qi was trying to break a rock with an egg. At this time, Hellion Wuxia directly went to the two of them, releasing a terrifying aura to protect them. Although Miao Xian, who was frowning slightly, didn't get close, she didn't leave either. She just stood there motionlessly, paying attention to the fatty and Chen Qi, her state of mind inexplicably fluctuating. He faced her indifferently, but according to her request, he fought with sword principles from beginning to end. Moreover, he displayed a combat strength that was completely beyond her imagination. If it weren't for the fact that there were too many nameless monstrous geniuses in this year's competition, she was almost certain that Chen Hao could enter the top 10 with sword principles and fulfill her request. Then, does this damned fatty value me more than him? Miao Xian couldn't understand. She only knew that her mood at this moment completely went against the sword puppet's straightforward character. At this moment, she couldn't see through her own heart. Chi. Boom boom boom. The other cultivators' battles only became more intense at this time. In other words, this was the real beginning. The top 1,000 was one of the requirements for a first-class academy to be promoted to a top academy. There was no doubt that anyone who qualified this time would be a true monstrous genius. Every group of 10,000 people would determine the top 100, and 10 groups would form the top 1,000. In this round, the top 100 people in each group would eliminate an average of 99 people. In other words, the top 100 people would have to win an average of 99 battles in a row. Failure in any battle would lead to elimination. However, according to the number of victories you had, your position in the top 100,000 would be determined. Therefore, at this time, there were no more peak battles that no one wanted to miss. All the cultivators began to go crazy, especially those who felt that they had a chance to enter the top 1,000, but were not certain. There were even some who directly challenged several people at the same time. By doing so, if they were eliminated, their ranking would be higher. Unfortunately, other than the 10th group, after watching Chen Hao and Xiao Manxia's battle, the others' battles became dull and boring. Even if the people fighting were already experts in the top 100,000, it still wouldn't work. The gap was too big. It wasn't that there weren't any real experts, but even if there weren't any opponents who were on par with them. After all, not everyone was like Chen Hao and Xiao Manxia. Under normal circumstances, they would pick on the weakest opponents. As long as they could advance, it would be fine. There was no need to choose a strong opponent. Not only would they expose their true strength, they might also be eliminated like Xiao Manyan and Xiao Manxia. That would not be worth it. Therefore, most of the cultivators were still staring at Chen Hao and Chen Qi curiously. There were many teachers and cultivators from the Grand Mist Supremacy realm in Chen Qi's academy, who came to watch the battle. At this moment, they were all worried for Chen Qi. Although the conversation between Chen Hao and Chen Qi confused everyone, it also made one point clear. The fatty was the original body, and Chen Qi was the fatty's life, but it was a completely independent life. The supreme realm of the 9 lives profound technique. Did it matter who won or lost? For most people, it didn't matter at all. Whether the fatty won or Chen Qi won, they would become a stronger existence. However, it was very important for the University of Dahua and Chen Qi's academy. Especially for the University of Dahua. The fatty was their academy's guarantee to enter the top academy. If he lost, the others would have a much lower chance of entering the top 1,000. They might fall short. Therefore, at this time, and in a situation where they couldn't see the battle at all, Cheng Wanxiang and the others were more nervous than when the fatty and Xiao Manxia fought before. Time passed by minute, and every minute was a kind of torture for Cheng Wanxiang and the others. The first group's competition was over, and the top 100 were decided. The fourth group's competition was also over. The competitions of the groups ended one after another. Until all 9 groups had ended, the 10th group where Chen Hao was still not decided on the top 100. It was unknown whether it was a coincidence or the cultivators present were too shrewd. At this moment, there were a total of 101 people left, including Chen Hao and Chen Qi. No one was fighting anymore. They just quietly watched Chen Hao and Chen Qi, who were standing face to face with their eyes closed. Obviously, the battle between Chen Hao and Chen Qi was the last one. Only when they had a winner would the top 100 be decided. It's not over yet? Damn, what's going on? When the space barriers of the other 9 groups disappeared and merged with the spectator floor, only the 10th group was left. Everyone's line of sight was also unobstructed to see the 10th group's space, which had shrunk to a very small size. Many people were shocked by what they saw and asked in surprise. How? Brother How? TSK. When the peerless figures saw the people in the 10th group, they immediately rushed to the front of the barrier and cried out in surprise. Unfortunately, in the 10th group's space, no one could hear their voices. Similarly, they could not see their figures. Brother How, little 7. Don't. It was also at this moment that a voice suddenly cut through the void. It was filled with horror. Little Hui. Chen Shui and the others immediately recognized the owner of the voice. TSK. In an instant, Chen Shui and the other girls rushed toward Lu Hui, who was so frightened that she seemed to have gone crazy. No one knew how terrified and frightened Lu Hui was when she saw Chen Hao and Chen Qi standing face to face and being watched by everyone. Although she had long known that this scene would happen sooner or later, and it would happen during this period of time, when she really faced it, her heart hurt as if it was being pricked by needles. One was the man she loved the most, and the other was the 7th life of the man she loved the most. However, they were children that she had brought up single-handedly. There was no love, but there was family. She really did not want Chen Qi to disappear just like that, and become one with the man she loved the most, Chen Hao. Chen Qi was already living in her heart. How could she accept him disappearing just like that? However, she could not stop any of this. No matter how she shouted, Chen Hao and Chen Qi could not hear her. However, at this moment, Chen Qi suddenly opened his eyes and looked straight in Lu Hui's direction. Little Hui. Ah. Ah. Cries of surprise rang out one after another. Even Lu Hui, who was crying, was stunned. Her mind was blank, and her delicate body trembled. Chen Qi had awakened. What did that mean? You should have seen me, right? I know you're sad. In your heart, I'm like your son, right? I know that I can't replace him, and he can't take my place in your heart. However, I'm him and he's me. I understand. I hope you understand too. I've lost. I'm very happy. See you later. Crash. As soon as Chen Qi finished speaking, his body turned into specks of light like flowing sand and merged into Chen Hao's glabella. Chapter 1422. Buzz. The barrier of the 10th group dissipated, and the top 1,000 were decided. The next round of the competition was divided into 10 groups of 100 people each. The top 10 would advance to the next round. However, the format of the competition was different from before. It was a round-robin competition for 100 people. In other words, any 2 cultivators would have to fight each other. Finally, the top 10 cultivators with the highest points would advance to the top 100. We did it! Ha! A top academy. Our academy has become a top academy. Haha. We are also students of a top academy. The pressure is so great. When Fatty opened his eyes, the students of the University of Daoyang cheered. Fatty had made it to the top 1,000, and he was the only one in the almighty immortal realm of the University of Dahua. Ao Qian, Ling Feng, Xue Fian, and Wan Yishui had not made it to the top 1,000, but this was expected. After all, the top 1,000 was the top 1,000 from the great world of Xiandi. To be able to enter the top 1,000, even if it was the last place, one had to be a true genius. Otherwise, there was no hope at all. Ao Qian, Ling Feng, Xue Fian, and Wan Yishui had not displayed the full circle of the Daoyuo Golden Wonderland. Similarly, among the girls, only Helian Wuzi, Chen Shui, and Lu Hui had entered the top 1,000. Other than Helian Wuzi, who was in the same group as Chen Hao, Chen Shui and Lu Hui had only narrowly advanced. Have they merged? It seems that their luck is not leaning towards me. However, it doesn't matter. You are the main body, so your luck naturally has an innate advantage. Even if it is my luck, it will still cover you. Only by merging with you, I will be the master of my own destiny. All the luck will belong to me. I know that you must be hiding something. Unfortunately, it is useless to me. The final victory will belong to me. Chen Tianhe. Xiao Hui, you are mine. Chen Tianhe said in his heart as he stood proudly and stared at the fatty from afar, as well as the weeping little nurse, Lu Hui, who threw herself into the fatty's arms. Disciples who have advanced, please step onto the 4th level immediately. Buzz buzz buzz. Not long after, the host's voice sounded. Immediately, the top 1,000 cultivators who had successfully advanced rose into the air and stepped onto the next level under the envious gaze of the crowd. Chi, 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 rumble. The moment the 1,000 cultivators stepped into the 4th level, 500 arenas that contained powerful space-time laws appeared in the space of the 4th level, divided into 10 regions. There were 50 arenas in one area. The 4th group, Phew. After Fatty, Helian Wuzi, Chen Shui, and Lu Hui, who was still immersed in sadness, stepped into the 4th level, they were directly teleported to the area marked with the 4th group. As for the 3 girls, they went to another group. This time, although there were no seated contestants, the contestants' combat power was still taken into consideration during the grouping. When the strong met, the strong would be eliminated. This was something that had to be avoided as much as possible, although it was impossible to completely avoid it. After all, some people would provoke others, some would be unconvinced, and some would hide their strength, causing the assessment to be inaccurate. For example, the fatty who was ranked 8th was stronger than Xiao Manxia who was ranked 1st. It was impossible to completely put an end to it, especially since there were many newly emerged experts in this batch. It's the round-robin stage. Everyone in the group will fight each other. I can finally fight to my heart's content. 99 matches. After letting out a long sigh, Chen Hao revealed a look of excitement. Chen Hao, who had already stepped into the great circle of the Daoyuo Golden Wonderland, needed a large number of different opponents to train himself. Moreover, due to his abnormal talent, the opponents he needed were not necessarily as strong as Xiaomanxia. It was fine as long as they were not too weak. Every cultivator had their own shining points, especially at this stage. They were the top 1,000 monsters in the great world of CND. Even in the top academies, they were the top monsters. Without a doubt, this was what Chen Hao liked the most. Unfortunately, what? You admit defeat? Are you kidding me? The battle hasn't even started. I'm sorry, brotherly. I'm not your opponent. Ah, you can't be. You admit defeat too? If brotherly can defeat Xiaomanxia, there's no need for me to expose myself. I admit defeat. Our dean believes that you will definitely enter the top 10. I admit that I'm far inferior to you. I'm sorry. After the start of the competition, Chen Hao was automatically sent to one of the 50 arenas in the 4th group. He thought that he could fight to his heart's content for 99 consecutive battles, but he did not expect that the opponents he encountered would admit defeat continuously. And it lasted until the end. All 99 people admitted defeat. In a group, no one dared to fight with him. Chen Hao was so depressed that he wanted to vomit blood. He almost suffered internal injuries. However, this scene in the eyes of many people was natural. Obviously, although there were no seeded contestants in this round of competition, the allocation of group members according to the assessment of strength was fixed. Chen Hao was undoubtedly the first master in the 4th group. This also meant that the latest assessment of his combat strength ranking was likely to be 4th. He had defeated Xiaomanxia, who had the potential to enter the top 10 of the great world of CND, the first female Daoyuo Jingxian. Moreover, he had the 9 Lives Mystic technique, the Star River King's unique technique, and the doppelganger Chen Qi, who was a disciple of a top academy, and could use the Great 5 Elements art to an incredible level. How many people could defeat him? Since they knew that they were no match for him, why fight? At this point, there were no weaklings. Most of the battles were lost, so there was no need to fight. If they fought, they would not be embarrassed to perform badly in front of everyone. However, if they wanted to perform well, they would have to reveal their strongest strength. That would not be good for the following battles. It was because of this that they chose to admit defeat. Almost the same scene appeared in the 1st and 2nd groups. In the 1st group, no one dared to fight Chen Tianhe. In the 2nd group, no one dared to fight Xiao Jiutian, the first Daoyuo Jingxian of the Xiao family. In the other groups, the new generation Sword King's disciples Qing Yang and Miao Xian, Kong Ying, who had stepped out of the Emperor Star Secret Realm, the first Daoyuo Jingxian of the Jade Maiden Palace, the first Daoyuo Chisue of the Snowdrift Academy, and the first Daoyuo Buchun of the Parkway Academy. Most of their opponents also chose to admit defeat. Those who did not admit defeat were all experts who had hidden their strength. Although they could not defeat them, the terrifying strength they displayed made the latecomers admit defeat. At the end of the competition, the top 10 of each group were decided. There was a total of 100 people. There was no need to calculate, and everyone could roughly guess the top 10 list. Even if there was a discrepancy with the final result, it would not be too big. All 10 of them were first in their groups and had won all their matches. I predict that the top 10 list will be ranked according to their strength. First, Chen Tianhe, second, Xiao Jiutian. Wrong. I think Xiao Jiutian will definitely be first. He is the first Daoyuo of the Xiao family, a true disciple of the Star River King. He is not someone Chen Tianhe can compare to. Chapter 1423. Haha, don't you know that Chen Tianhe is also a direct disciple of the Star River Monarch? Of course I know. But Chen Tianhe's surname is Chen, and he became the Star River Monarch's disciple not long ago. How can he be compared to Xiao Jiutian? The reason why his evaluation is higher than Xiao Jiutian is because of his powerful faith energy. But that power doesn't truly belong to him. After all, it's an external force. It has a huge flaw in a life-and-death battle. That's true. But I still think that Chen Tianhe is strong. Look, it won't be long before the results come out. In any case, the two of them must have occupied 2 spots in the top 10, and they should be first and second. Don't forget about the Jade Maiden Palace's Ningjing. She hasn't made a move yet, and she's still the first in her group based on her aura alone. There's also the Sword Monarch's disciples, Qin Yang and Miao Xian. They were all second in the previous seeded contestants, but they're all first in their groups. They've obviously hidden a lot. There's also Snowdrift Academy's Buchun. He can't be underestimated either. Yeah, it's hard to say. Li Yuan defeated Xiao Manxia and fused with the powerful Chen Qi. The fourth group should be ranked fourth, and there's a possibility for them to compete for first place. There's also Kong Ying. Like Li Yuan, he's also an existence that led his academy to the top. But he's more low-key and was overshadowed by Li Yuan's brilliance. But it's hard to say how strong he is. Li Yuan's battle with Xiao Manxia might be his strongest, but he's only ranked fourth. As for the others, they haven't revealed anything yet. As for Kong Ying, it's hard to say. We can't see how strong he is, and there's no information for us to refer to. Yeah. In any case, Chen Tianhe, Xiao Jiutian, Ningjing, Qin Yang, Miao Xian, Buchun, Li Yuan, and Kong Ying will be in the top 10 if nothing unexpected happens. As for the other two who entered the top 100 with undefeated records, their strength is relatively weak. There are bound to be many challengers, so the chances of them being a threat to Li Yuan and Kong Ying will depend on whether or not there are any hidden super experts in the future. There must be. This time, only the top 10 of the group will advance. Some people don't care about which place they advance. It's just a temporary surrender. Let's wait and see. After the top 100 were determined, both the cultivators who were watching at the scene and the cultivators who were watching in the immortal realm space began to buzz with discussion. The alliances of the cities in the immortal realm space, the internal affairs of the major forces, and the major chambers of commerce even began to place bets. Contestants, please enter the 5th floor. When the center of the martial arts practice field turned into a huge ring, the host's voice sounded again. This time, Chen Hao rose into the air alone and stepped into the 5th level under the excited gazes of the crowd. Chen Shui, Helian Wuxi, and Lu Hui all stopped outside the top 100 and were eliminated. It was already very good that Chen Shui and Helian Wuxi could achieve such results. As for Lu Hui, the soul of all living things, she was defeated because of her terrible mood. Otherwise, with the immortal emperor absolute art that she had awakened, there was still hope for her to enter the top 10 of the group. In other words, she could enter the top 100. For this round of competition, the top 10 contestants will be evaluated. For the remaining 90 people, whoever thinks that they have the strength to defeat any one of the top 10 can challenge them. If they succeed, they will replace them and become one of the top 10. If they fail, they will lose the qualification to enter the top 10. When no one challenges the top 10 will be determined. At the same time, the rankings of the remaining 90 people will be announced. If you are not satisfied with the rankings, you can challenge the top 10 contestants. When there are no more challengers, the top 10 ranking battle will officially begin. Now I will announce the top 10 contestants. The rankings are in no particular order. Chen Tianhe, Xiao Jiutian, Ningjing, Li Yuan, Miao Xian, Qin Yang, Buchun, Kong Ying, Baihua Lu Fei. When the top 100 contestants stepped into the 5th floor, the host began to announce the method of this round of competition and the top 10 contestants. Although the host said that the rankings were in no particular order, the order in which the names were announced was based on the combat strength of the contestants. De Hua Li Yuan was ranked 4th. The top 10 contestants, please enter the ring and be challenged. Wait a minute. Suddenly, a voice sounded in everyone's ears and interrupted the host. Voila. Suddenly, both the audience and the immortal world space went into an uproar. Everyone looked at the source of the voice in surprise. The rostrum. Star River King. What's the matter? Countless people were puzzled. They didn't know why the Star River King interrupted the host at this moment. This was an extremely rare occurrence. Even Prince Ying, Chen Taishu, and the other big shots on the rostrum looked at the Star River King in confusion. Star River King, what orders do you have? Although the host was puzzled, he didn't dare to show any displeasure and asked respectfully. Put the contestant ranked 11th in the top 10. Huh? No way, right? What does this mean? The Star River King's words made countless people puzzled. Only Prince Ying, Chen Hao, Miao Xian, Qin Yang, Ruolin Ruoxian, and the others who were familiar with Chen Hao understood what the Star River King wanted to do. Old Man's personal disciples Chen Tianhe and De Hua, Li Yuan, are just 2 lives in the 9 lives mystic technique. They are actually one person. Voila! The Star River King didn't give the crowd too much time to wonder, and directly announced, causing a huge uproar. Even the top 100 experts looked at Chen Tianhe and Fatty Li Yuan in shock. Moreover, it is the highest level of the 9 lives mystic technique. There is no difference between the original body and the avatar. And this time, they will fuse together. You have seen Chen Qi fused with Li Yuan before. There are also a few lives that you haven't seen, fused with Tianhe. The 2 of them will be the final fusion. No matter who wins or loses, they are the same person in the end. Therefore, the current top 10 is only the top 9. Let's pick another one and let Chen Tianhe and Li Yuan fight in advance. That way, the top 10 will be the real top 10. The ranking will also be more realistic. Celestial River King said. The Star River King's words made everyone's eyes widen. The top 10 contestants, except for Miao Xian, Qin Yang, and Xiao Jiutian, became dignified. After all, Chen Tianhe was already ranked first. If he fused with the 4th, how strong would they be? Most of the people from the Dehua College who didn't know about this situation were so excited that their eyeballs almost fell to the ground. In their minds, Fatty was already a superior existence. Now they had reached the point of looking up to a mountain. They couldn't describe their feelings at all. Incredible. They could only say that it was incredible. At the same time, the cultivators who were familiar with Fatty and liked him also felt a sense of worry. If Fatty lost, he would be fused with by Chen Tianhe. In that case, would Fatty still be Fatty? The most important thing was, would Fatty still be considered a member of the Dehua College? They didn't think that Fatty could defeat Chen Tianhe, who was ranked first in the assessment of the First Academy. Chapter 14:24. What the Star River King said is right. In that case, Chen Tianhe and Li Yuan will fight alone and become one. Do you two have any objections? Although the host was surprised, he made a decision quickly. Chief, that's exactly what I want. Chen Tianhe rose directly into the air and appeared on the ring in a flash. His whole body was blooming with a bright and sacred golden light, like a banished immortal. His eyes were calm and confident as he stared at Chen Hao and said lightly. At this moment, all eyes were focused on Chen Hao. The fat man frowned slightly and stared straight at Chen Tianhe, as if thinking about something. Li Yuan, do you have any objections? The host asked. No. I just didn't expect it to be so sudden, Chen Hao said. He did not expect the Star River King to know so much and do this. Of course, the most important thing was that he did not understand the purpose of the Star River King. Chen Hao and Chen Tianhe's situation was a very private matter in Chen Hao's view. After all, the Star River King sealed Chen Hao's origin for Chen Hao and forcibly stripped his avatar. It was not a glorious thing. But the Star River King said it in public. Although he secretly changed the concept and did not say that he did it, but that Chen Hao and Chen Tianhe had cultivated the 9 lives mysterious technique to the highest level. Chen Hao still found it incredible. Is there a difference between earlier and later? Chen Tianhe said proudly. Of course there is. The corners of Chen Hao's mouth curled up slightly, revealing a smile as he looked straight at Chen Tianhe, and said without showing any weakness. What's the difference? Chen Tianhe knew Chen Hao's character very well. After all, he was still himself. Even though he knew that Chen Hao was definitely not showing weakness by saying this, he still asked. The difference between you dying early and dying late. Sure enough, as Chen Tianhe guessed, the smile on Chen Hao's face disappeared and his eyes became fierce. His fighting spirit soared as he took a step forward. The next moment, Chen Hao had already arrived on the ring. However, what made Chen Hao frown was that he suddenly realized that there was a terrifying aura on Chen Hao's body. Although it was very, very hidden, it still appeared clearly in his senses. Invincible general trend? How could he still be so confident in front of me? Is that even possible? Chen Tianhe was slightly puzzled. As the second anima, he was the only one of Chen Hao's true nirvanic rebirth. His cultivation had been built up step by step. Now he was in charge of Chunhao's most powerful force, the power of faith. How strong was the faith of all the cultivators in the ancient chaos world? Since the unification of the ancient chaos Great Thousand World, Chunhao had become the ruler of the ancient chaos Great Thousand World. Chen Tianhe could feel the power of faith growing stronger all the time. The problem now was that he was restricted by his own realm. Otherwise, the power of faith that he could use would be absolutely terrifying. He had the sea, but he could only summon rivers. In this case, it meant that he had an endless supply of power of faith. In the same realm, who could be his match? More importantly, he had fused with the third, fourth, fifth, and sixth animus. The Mad Devil realm, the Tao manifestation immortal fruit tree, the tree of life, and the spiritual fountain sea. All of them were heaven-defying existences. At this moment, he was confident that he could defeat any genius in the same realm. But at this moment, Chunhao was still able to produce an invincible general trend in front of him. Where did Chunhao's confidence come from? He couldn't figure it out. Furthermore, based on his understanding of his true self, he had to be cautious. It seems that you really did have some amazing fortuitous encounter. Wang. A resplendent, sacred golden light suddenly gushed out from Chunhao's body. At the same time, a boundless will of slaughter spread out. What? Chen Tianhe turned pale with fright. Resplendent, sacred golden light. If that wasn't the power of faith, then what was it? One had to know that he had completely taken over the power of faith. How could Chunhao still have more? And his aura wasn't any weaker than his? The others were even more shocked. Not only was Chunhao suddenly releasing the aura of the power of faith, but it was also Chunhao's appearance. Although they knew that Chen Tianhe and Fatty Li Yuan were at the highest level of the 9 Lives profound technique, their appearances were completely different. However, when they couldn't sense the slightest bit of disguise, they knew that one of them had to be in disguise. Or rather, both of them were in disguise, and it was the ultimate form of the Great Change art. However, when they saw Fatty Li Yuan's figure disappear, and was replaced by a figure and appearance that was exactly the same as Chen Tianhe's, they were still incomparably shocked. They couldn't tell what exactly they were feeling. The figure, appearance, and aura were exactly the same. However, Chunhao, who had just returned to his true self, felt more real. Just like what Miao Xian had said, he was very fake. When they didn't compare, they didn't feel it. However, when Chunhao returned to his true self and appeared in front of them, they could feel the difference. So this is Fatty Bro's true appearance. When Fatty Bro was tested, we thought that he had gained intelligence from the will of slaughter that he inherited. The cultivators of the University of Dahua widened their eyes in shock. How did you regain control of the power of faith? Chen Tianhe couldn't help but ask. Do you still need to ask me such a simple question? Wang. Chunhao said arrogantly and disdainfully. As he spoke, his body trembled once again, and a majestic vitality suddenly bloomed. Golden and green light intertwined, causing his cold and handsome face to look demonic. You. Chen Tianhe pointed at Chunhao, feeling tongue-tied. What is the origin? Is the control of the origin really as simple as the suppression of the soul consciousness? What a joke. I was able to give birth to you and them. Do you really think that I borrowed their talents? Chunhao's gaze turned cold as he stared at the shocked Chen Tianhe. This was exactly the feeling he wanted. Arrogant? Imposing manner? Number 1 in evaluation? All bullshit. He was the true self. How could he let his doppelganger overshadow him? If you are arrogant and insufferably arrogant, then I will be even more arrogant and insufferably arrogant than you. Whether it is true combat strength or external competition, I will not be at a disadvantage. He wanted to completely trample him under his feet. Wang. Following Chunhao's words, his body trembled once again. In an instant, it caused countless cries of surprise. Even the old man on the rostrum was so shocked that he sucked in a breath of cold air. Thousands of Tao laws tumbled. The laws of heaven and earth interacted with it, becoming one. Connate Tao embryo. Tao manifestation immortal fruit tree. Many experts could tell at a glance that something was wrong. You actually managed to condense them after you managed to see through their origin? There might be problems with the updates in the next 2 days. If there is a break in the updates, it will be updated on the 19th. Sorry, I have something to do overseas. Chapter 1425. Including you. Chen Hao said as he stared at Chen Tianhe. Phew. Chen Tianhe let out a long breath, as if he was trying to expel the shock and pressure in his heart. He then said, I have to say that you're very strong. I knew that you weren't that simple, but you still shocked me today. Is that so? Chen Hao replied with a question in a proud manner. The battle intent in his body was still rising, and his pitch-black and deep gaze was sharp like a sword. Yes. However, do you really think that's all I'm capable of? Or do you think that I only relied on the power of faith to fuse with their power? If that's really the case, then you're too naive. You should know whether I've been naive or not. I'm not you anymore. You wouldn't have been in the past, but it's hard to say with the current me. It's not your style to reveal so much before the battle, but you've revealed it this time. What does that mean? You're guilty. Ridiculous. There's nothing ridiculous about it. When you saw my shock, you thought that I was afraid, and your aura grew stronger. Isn't that right? I can tell you clearly that you are just deceiving yourself. Chen Tianhe looked straight into Chen Hao's eyes. His voice became louder and louder, resounding through the heavens and earth. The Star River King, King Ying, the New Sword King, and countless cultivators from the great world of CND, especially the top 100 experts, were watching this scene with a solemn expression. Chen Hao and Chen Tianhe's auras were already so terrifying that even the top 100 experts felt great pressure. However, it was still rising. Strong. Extremely strong. Only Xiao Jiutian, Ning Jing, Qing Yang, Miao Xian Buchun, and Kong Ying were able to maintain a calm expression. They were the 6 people that everyone had predicted to enter the top 10, excluding Chen Hao and Chen Tianhe. Huh. Chen Hao chuckled at Chen Tianhe's words. Can we begin? Since you're in a hurry to die, then let's begin. Boom. Boom. Clang clang. After the two of them finished accumulating their power, they did not waste any more time. Almost at the same time, they unleashed their auras without restraint and drew their swords. 2 beams of sword light bloomed at the same time. The same move, the same speed, the same power of faith gathered at the tip of the sword, and the sword stabbed out. The only difference was that Chen Hao's golden sword light of faith was enveloped in a layer of demonic blood color. That was the blossoming of his killing intent. On the other hand, Chen Tianhe's sword of pure faith. It was pure, divine, and seemed capable of purifying all evil in the world. It contained boundless and endless energy of faith. Boom. Rumble. This is... What happened? Countless young and inexperienced cultivators in the immortal realm, as well as those who were watching the battle at the scene, widened their eyes in surprise and cried out in surprise. In the sealed arena, when the 2 swords collided, the golden light shone brightly, causing the sky and earth to lose their color. The terrifying destructive power caused the entire Deer Chaser Peak to tremble violently, with endless energy tumbling. But this was not the reason why the young disciples were surprised. The real reason was that everyone saw the image of the mountains collapsing and the earth cracking, with dust and smoke billowing. How was this possible? This was the arena condensed by the most powerful true immortal kings on Deer Chaser Peak. Let alone Chen Hao and Chen Tianhe, who were cultivators from the Daluo Golden Wonderland. Even true immortals or ordinary true immortal kings could not damage it at all. How could Chen Hao and Chen Tianhe damage it? Ain Master. At the same time, a few experienced and knowledgeable experts let out different exclamations of surprise. Strong. Incredible. It's just Daluo Jingxian, but he has already awakened his Yin Master. What's more incredible is that he can spontaneously combine Yin and Yang in the battle. Yeah, this year's competition is really strong. Look at Xinghe King and King Ying. They don't seem surprised. Xiao Jiutian, Ning Jing, Miao Xian, Qing Yang, and Kong Ying are not surprised either. This means that Chen Tianhe and Li Yuan are not the only ones who have awakened their Yin Masters, and can use them. Indeed, a real great era is coming. Perhaps, in the near future, a real immortal emperor will be born from this batch of geniuses. Yeah, that's very likely. The discussion of countless experts made the young cultivators understand what was going on. The image of the mountains collapsing and the earth cracking was not a complete illusion, but a world of masters. In the terrifying explosion, Chen Hao's blood-red killing intent was completely annihilated. It did not break through Chen Tianhe's golden sword light, and disappeared completely. However, Chen Hao's sword light was also unable to break through Chen Hao's sword light. Qi. This result seemed to be within the expectations of Chen Hao and Chen Tianhe. They did not stop and attacked again. At the same time, they approached each other at high speed. Clang, clang, clang in an instant. Dense sword light and boundless sword intent wreaked havoc as the two of them fought in close quarters. Each sword strike was stronger, faster, and trickier than the last. At this moment, even Miao Xian, Qing Yang, and Sword King Chen Taishu, the three real sword puppets, were shaken and their eyes lit up. This was the collision of the solitary sword arts. They had no moves and no styles, and they used offense as defense. What kind of concept was that? More importantly, this was only a sword skill. The divine ability runes that the two of them had fused into their sword skills were also refreshing and eye-opening. Chen Tianhe was not limited to the magical runes of the sword Dao. The magical runes he formed were ever-changing and wonderful. Chen Hao, on the other hand, was a pure combination of the sword Dao and the solitary sword arts. Although there were some limitations, he was not at a disadvantage. For a moment, even Sword King Chen Taishu could not tell who was stronger. But at this moment, Star River King frowned slightly and said softly, "I didn't expect him to be so strong." "Brother Xiao, who are you talking about?" Chen Taishu could not help but ask. King Ying also looked at Star River King at the same time. Both of them knew very well that Star River King's strength and vision were better than theirs. The only existence in the great world of Xiandi, who was known as a half-step immortal emperor, was not just a title. Of course it's Li Yuan. Of course Tianhe is him, and he is Tianhe. Brother Chen, Ying, I won't hide it from you. Before the battle, I had 100% confidence in Tianhe, but now I'm a little confused. To be exact, whether it's Tianhe or Li Yuan, they are both beyond my expectations. And Li Yuan, who is the original body, has continuously exceeded my expectations. Giving birth to life was built on the foundation of breaking through the origin. This exceeded my expectations. This required an extraordinarily high level of comprehension talent, but not only did he achieve it, he even fused his own thoughts into the foundation of breaking through the comprehension, which was his Dao. This is amazing. And now he has imprisoned himself in the sword Dao, but he can compete with Tianhe. Naturally, it means that he is stronger. After all, he can't be a pure sword puppet. Chapter 1426. That's true, Chen Taishu said. Both of them are using the same sword skill. It should be the nearly lost ancient martial art, solitary sword art, right? Star River King looked at Sword King Chen Taishu and said, "That's right. The confrontation of solitary sword art, under the premise of equal strength, is a competition of combat talent and perception. In this regard, Tianhe should be a little inferior." Star River King said. Chen Taishu and King Ying both nodded slightly. When the same kind of formless technique and the same kind of attack as defense met, it naturally depended on who performed better on the spot. What depended on the performance? Combat talent and perception. The stronger one's combat talent, the more accurate and faster one's judgment and reaction would be. They would always be able to subconsciously make the strongest and most effective response in the shortest time. And the stronger one's perception, on the other hand, would be the first to break through the shackles under the premise of a difficult fight. Is that so? Although what Brother Xiao said makes sense, I feel that Li Yuan may be a little inferior to Chen Tianhe. Li Yuan's power of faith is like duckweed without a root. He has only comprehended the origin of the power of faith, but does not have a strong source of faith to support him. But Chen Tianhe is different. I can feel that he has an endless supply of power of faith. So as time passes, Li Yuan's consumption has become the foundation of his shackles. I'm afraid this is not something that can be compensated for by combat talent and perception. It seems that you don't know much about your Tu Su, my disciple. Star River King smiled slightly and said, "Similarly, you don't understand the origin of the power of faith. Ahem. That's true. Sword King Chen Taishu said with a little embarrassment. He was a pure sword puppet, and indeed did not understand the power of faith. Why did Li Yuan expose his strength in advance? Why did he stop hiding his true appearance? Do you think it was really just to build momentum? It's not that simple. At this moment, it can be said that the great world of CND was watching his battle. He had recovered his true appearance and displayed his powerful strength, all for the sake of winning the providence. Luck and power of faith could be said to be closely related. Fame was luck, and being worshipped was the accumulation of luck. It was also the earliest form of condensing power of faith. Although the effect is not as good, and it has only just begun, and there is no time to accumulate it, the great world of CND is paying attention to it. It is enough to sustain a Daluo Jingxian in a continuous battle. Therefore, the problem you mentioned is not a problem at all. It is just that he is not accumulating it, but he has already begun to accumulate it rapidly. It is enough to sustain the accumulation of his consumption. Chen Taishu and Prince Ing were both incomparably shocked. Even they had not thought of this. One had to admit that Celestial River King, the #1 immortal emperor, was not someone they could compare to. However, at the same time, Chen Hao also did not think about the Celestial River King's words. He just wanted to completely trample Chen Tianhe under his feet, and completely defeat him so that it would be easier for him to fuse with this independent thought that had lost control of its origin. It could be said that he hit the nail on the head. Chen Hao only found out after a few moves that his power of faith had an endless supply, and it had exceeded the speed of his consumption. I see. So Li Yuan is going to win? Chen Taishu suddenly said. That is not necessarily true. I just said that I have lost 100% confidence in Tianhe. For the time being, I am not sure who the final winner will be. Tianhe still has a stronger power that he has not used. Brother Chen, I will say it directly. I said so much because I love talent. I don't want to lose such a good disciple. Similarly, I believe you don't want to lose such a good Tushu. Therefore, I think that no matter who wins in the end, whose thoughts dominate, we can have a very perfect ending. What do you mean? If Tianhe wins, I will still let him be your Tushu. Of course, Tianhe cannot be your only disciple. Although the relationship between him and Xiaoxia has not been announced to the world, it has been confirmed in private. I can't hide this from you. Ahem, Brother Xiao, I understand what you mean. That is to say, if Li Yuan wins, I will let him be your disciple, and let Xiao Manxia be his Dao companion, right? Yes. But I can't promise you this. Oh. Why? Isn't this a way to have the best of both worlds? Or brother, do you think Li Yuan will win? You know, Li Yuan said that I am his idol. Even if he wins, if I want to accept him as my disciple, he should be very happy. What's more, after the fusion, their minds will not be destroyed. What do you think? Brother Xiao, I will say what I want to say. He is my Tushu. I can't impose my consciousness on him. This is not my style. In my opinion, no matter what the outcome is, it should be his own decision. I should not interfere, and I will not interfere. That's good. Then let's wait for the results to come out. As long as you do not object to my statement, it will be fine. Celestial River King frowned slightly and said nothing. Chen Taishu also did not say anything, but he felt a faint worry in his heart. Since the Celestial River King took the initiative to say this, the meaning behind it was obvious. He did not want to lose such a talented disciple. Even if Chen Hao won, he would still take him under his wing. How could Chen Taishu not worry about such a situation? The Celestial River King was not as easy to talk to as he looked on the surface. As the strongest person in the great world of CND, as long as he wanted to do something, there was nothing he could not do. No one could go against his will. Otherwise, there would only be one result: destruction. Chen Taishu could not do it, and neither could King Ying. Moreover, Chen Taishu had already learned some things about the Celestial River King from Chen Hao. How could Chen Hao become his disciple? King Ying, who had been paying attention to the two, did not speak. However, a trace of worry flashed through her eyes. She also learned about Chen Hao from Si Xian, and had the same idea as Chen Taishu. However, the two of them had no other choice but to take one step at a time. Chi. Boom boom boom. Chen Hao and Chen Tianhe fought back and forth and were locked in a fierce battle. The sharp and tricky attacks made the spectators scream again and again. As time went by, the experts who had seen a lot of ancient martial arts were still okay. However, most of the cultivators were more and more shocked. The two's attacks were so skillful that they did not repeat any of their moves. Instead, they became more and more exquisite. They had never thought that such exquisite sword skills could exist. Chi, ding, boom boom. Suddenly, the two of them stabbed each other with the tip of their swords. A terrifying energy exploded between the two, and the two separated for the first time since the close combat. Chapter 1427. Are you trying to defeat me with pure sword Dao? Chen Tianhe, who finally had a chance to catch his breath, said coldly. Or should I say, your strongest combat strength is sword Dao? If that's the case, admit defeat and fuse with me. I can consider fulfilling your wishes as much as possible. Boom. Chen Tianhe said proudly. As he spoke, the aura around him became stronger again. A majestic and vigorous blood qi soared into the sky. His physical body did not change at all, but he gave off the feeling of a god of war descending. He suddenly became several times more majestic and terrifying. At the same time, the sword in his hand turned into a stream of light and entered between his eyebrows. Obviously, he did not want to fight with sword techniques anymore. Everyone looked at Chen Tianhe's transformation in shock and was speechless. Even Xiao Jiutian, Qing Yang, and Miao Xian's pupils shrank. What a powerful aura! Deer Chaser Ares technique? Someone in the crowd exclaimed. Deer Chaser Ares technique. It's definitely the strongest technique of Deer Chaser Academy. Deer Chaser Ares technique. Chen Tianhe is so strong. He has only been in the great world of Xiandi for a few hundred years, but he has already successfully cultivated the strongest technique of Deer Chaser Academy. This is unbelievable. No wonder he can become the chief Grand Luo of Deer Chaser Academy. In the same realm, once he uses the Ares technique, heaven and earth will submit. Who can compete with him? Deer Chaser Ares technique was the strongest technique of Deer Chaser Academy. Once it was successfully cultivated, its power would be boundless. It was even stronger than the Shao clan's heavenly silkworm 9 transformations. Is he going to admit defeat? Contrary to the expectations of most people, Chen Hao, who was surrounded by the energy of faith and the aura of slaughter, actually revealed a wisp of a victor's smile when facing Chen Tianhe, whose aura soared like the descent of a god of war, and spoke indifferently and with disdain. Force. An invisible force, an invincible force. It was still emitting from Chen Hao's body, spreading toward the endless void. It was invisible and untouchable, but it appeared in everyone's state of mind. However, most people did not understand the meaning of Chen Hao's words. Admit defeat? How could Chen Tianhe admit defeat? However, to everyone's surprise, Chen Hao's words made Chen Tianhe's expression turn ugly. After hesitating for a while, Chen Tianhe resolved the doubts in everyone's hearts. I am indeed a little inferior to you in terms of swordsmanship, but it's just a little bit. Even if I persevere, you won't be able to do anything to me. What's the point? If you don't continue, how do you know it's meaningless? Forget it, meaningless disputes are meaningless. I will let you know that since I created you, I have the ability to destroy you with true power. Come on. Boom. Chen Hao didn't waste any more words. A vast and pure blood aura, one that was even more powerful than Chen Tianhe's, gushed out along with his words. Alright, since that's the case, I'll let you experience my strongest combat strength, Chen Tianhe said coldly. Then he suddenly shouted. Only I, the god of war, will fight for supremacy in the world. Roar. Chi. Following Chen Tianhe's shout, the energy of heaven and earth suddenly gathered towards him at a terrifying speed. This time, under the gaze of countless cultivators. Regardless of whether they were at the scene or in the immortal realm, everyone could clearly see that Chen Tianhe's body had expanded by tens of thousands of times in an instant. His muscles, bones, and tendons emitted crisp and terrifying cracking sounds. A vast and terrifying aura pressed down on the crowd like a towering mountain. He punched out, and instantly, an incomparably huge fist radiance bloomed with a destructive aura, and shot towards Chen Hao at an astonishing speed. So powerful. Amazing. Can Great Li Yuan do it? Countless cultivators looked at Chen Tianhe, who had expanded by tens of thousands of times like the god of war, in horror. At this moment, Chen Hao was like an insignificant ant in front of Chen Tianhe. Regardless of whether it was the aura of power, the aura of suppression, or the ethereal but real aura, none of them could be compared to Chen Tianhe's deer-chasing art of war. I am the god of war. I am the god of war. Following the crazy increase in his strength, Chen Tianhe's confidence, which had been slightly affected, suddenly swelled again. The belief of invincibility rose, and he could clearly feel that at this moment, he was in control of the pulse of heaven and earth. Die. Explode. Just as the devastating fist aura was about to reach Chen Hao, Chen Tianhe let out a loud roar and suddenly detonated it. Rumble. A terrifying explosion occurred. The hearts of the girls and Chen Hao's brothers and sisters clenched at this moment. Their eyes were wide open, and they were extremely nervous. This was because the power of Chen Hao's god of war art had increased by too much. Even though they had almost blind worship and faith in Chen Hao, they could not be sure that Chen Hao would be able to withstand this punch. Crack. Crack. Crack, 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 crack. However, in the midst of this terrifying energy explosion, the body of Chen Hao, who was as tiny as an ant, suddenly emitted a clear sound of bones and meridians that were filled with power. It seemed to be disorderly, but every sound was able to penetrate the terrifying explosion and resound in the hearts of the cultivators. At the same time, with every sound, the treasured sword in the hands of Chen Hao, who was standing proudly like an ant, would advance a little bit. Not only did his body not expand, but it also shrank rapidly with his movements. However, an extremely shocking scene appeared. A blood-red phantom, which was filled with endless killing aura, appeared in the void above Chen Hao's head. It was so huge that it was even bigger than Chen Hao's expanded body. It made the same movements as Chen Hao. At this moment, even the cultivators below the seventh heaven, and above the first heaven of the cutting path true immortal realm, could not sense any abnormalities in the phantom, let alone any energy fluctuations. However, the cultivators above the seventh heaven of the cutting path true immortal realm, as well as some experts who had truly awakened the hidden spirit, and had mastered some of the ways to use it, all widened their eyes in horror. Ah! Miao Xian exclaimed. Her beautiful eyes were wide open, and she almost could not believe what she was seeing. Her heart was in her throat involuntarily. A Yin spirit attack. How could he be so crazy? That was his doppelganger, which was not inferior to his completely independent doppelganger. Such a pure Yin spirit attack was undoubtedly fatal to Chen Hao, who was using his Yang spirit attack. However, it was also fatal to Chen Hao. Last time, Chen Hao and Miao Xian were lucky enough to survive because of the accidental fusion of Yin and Yang. Otherwise, they would not have survived until now. However, even though Chen Hao knew the danger, he still attacked Chen Tianhe, whose strength was not inferior to his. What was the difference between this and perishing together? Chapter 1428. Chen Hao's body, which was as tiny as an ant, was finally unable to withstand the terrifying fist aura when the sword was completely unleashed. His body exploded like a human bomb. Ah! Countless screams were heard. Whether it was the siblings who knew Chen Hao or the cultivators who didn't know Chen Hao, they all felt sorry for him. No matter what, he was a true monstrous genius. He definitely had the strength to challenge the top 3 of the Daoyuo Golden Wonderland in the great world of Xiandi. However, he exploded and died. Miao Xian covered her chest and her face turned pale. Junior sister. Qin Yang also widened his eyes in shock and held Miao Xian's shoulder. It wasn't that they didn't expect such an ending, but they didn't expect it to happen so suddenly and so quickly. Why was Chen Hao so irrational? Even if his Yin soul could kill his opponent's Yin soul, so what? However, those who truly understood Chen Hao, such as Chen Nan and the others, were only shocked at the first moment before they heaved a long sigh of relief. This was because they saw a strand of resplendent green light. Even though it was only a tiny bit, it was filled with extremely pure vitality. Oh my God, little Hao Hao's life origin is even purer than my inheritance. It's so powerful. The effeminate Zhou Qinglong even extended his thumb and middle finger. He was dumbfounded and said with a face full of admiration. Chen Hao's physical body was destroyed, but he managed to complete the Yin deity phantom of his sword and stabbed out. In the eyes of many cultivators, there was no energy or sound, but it was as fast as lightning. Before Chen Hao's huge body could react, the phantom and the heaven and earth merged into one and pierced through Chen Tianhe's body. The sword radiance was aimed at Chen Tianhe's forehead. Chen Hao's phantom passed through Chen Tianhe's body like a shadow without any damage. It was as if a real phantom had passed through him. However, boom! Raging flames spurted out from Chen Tianhe's body. Ah! Roar! At this moment, Chen Tianhe let out a crazy and shrill roar. His eyes instantly became lifeless. Wang! Not far away, a sparkling emerald light suddenly shook, and Chen Hao's figure appeared again. Although his eyes were still empty and he was in a daze, his spirit was full. His aura was no different from the previous Chen Hao's physical body. The sun spirit was intact. As for Chen Hao's gigantic Yin spirit shadow, it disappeared the moment it pierced through Chen Tianhe's forehead. We won! At this moment, the top experts on the rostrum and the experts above the 7th level of Cutting Path True Immortal all looked at Chen Hao, who had been revived with full blood. They were extremely shocked. At this moment, even though the result was still not out, there was already no suspense. Chen Hao's powerful Yin spirit attack directly crushed and devoured Chen Hao's Yin spirit, while Chen Hao's Yang spirit was instantly reconstructed with his powerful and pure life force, without any damage. At this moment, it was just a matter of waiting, because Chen Hao's Yin spirit had been integrated into Chen Tianhe's Yang spirit, which was burning because of the imbalance of Yin and Yang. Junior sister, look. His Yang spirit is fine. It's the life force. What a powerful life force. It can be reconstructed in an instant. Ah! Qing Yang's excited voice woke Miao Xian, who was uncontrollably immersed in sorrow, and her pale face instantly showed excitement. When they saw the life force shining, the girls and Chen Nan's brothers and sisters, who had already breathed a sigh of relief, showed excited smiles at this moment. Dahua Li Yuan is really too strong. It's already amazing that the Daoyuo Golden Wonderland can awaken the Yin spirit, but he can cultivate it to the same level as the Yang spirit. He can launch an attack as powerful as the Yang spirit and defeat Chen Tianhe's Yin spirit with one move and occupy his physical body immediately. Using the characteristics of life of the same origin, he can adjust the subtle balance of Yin and Yang. And his own Yang spirit can use the extremely pure life force to reconstruct in the first place. It's really incredible. Who can fight against such a freak? This time, Dahua Li Yuan will definitely take the champion's throne. His combat strength has completely surpassed the shackles of the realm. He is absolutely invincible. It should be. At least until now, in the tens of millions of years in the Daoyuo Golden Wonderland, I have never seen such a freakish combat strength. Some of the true experts who understood what was going on exchanged words in surprise. At this time, Xiao Jiutian, Kong Ying, and the other experts also looked at Chen Hao in horror, and their expressions became more solemn. Kong Ying frowned, and her fighting spirit soared uncontrollably. Her long hair fluttered without wind, causing the top 100 members around her to look sideways. But after only a few seconds, Kong Ying's fighting spirit suddenly weakened until it disappeared. Then, she seemed to shake her head helplessly, and did not avoid the attention of the crowd as she muttered, "Is this the real great era? If I had broken through the coffin and stepped on the path of a stronger great Tao, maybe I could. But now I'm afraid I'm no match for him. And this is just the great world of Xiandi." Kong Ying admits that she is no match for Dahua Li Yuan. Many of the cultivators who noticed Kong Ying were still surprised after hearing her words, although they thought it was normal. After all, Kong Ying had not revealed her true combat strength yet, and she had already become one of the top 10 in everyone's hearts. Such a heaven-defying existence would not admit defeat easily even if she was not as good as her opponent, unless there was an insurmountable gap. Here, the so-called insurmountable gap was the situation where one could not defeat the opponent even if their own little universe erupted. Xiao Jiutian also glanced at Kong Ying, and then looked at the arena again with a solemn gaze. No one knew what he was thinking, but from his sharp eyes, one could be sure that he did not admit his inferiority like Kong Ying did. Hiss. Hiss. Sure enough, a moment later, the raging flames on Chen Hao's body weakened rapidly. When they completely disappeared, they turned into a stream of light and entered the glabella of Chen Hao's reconstructed body. Boom. A dash. Everyone thought that this would be the end. Dahua Li Yuan would win, and Chen Tianhe, who everyone thought most highly of, would be fused. However, to everyone's surprise, the moment Chen Hao and Chen Tianhe fused, a sudden change occurred. Chen Hao's aura was like a river bursting through a dam or a volcano erupting. In an instant, endless Tao laws and resplendent immortal light gushed out, as if they had completely lost control. They surged violently, causing Chen Hao to let out a shrill and terrifying scream. Bang! Bang bang! Bang bang bang! Chen Hao's body and even the glabella began to explode continuously at this moment. In an instant, bloody holes appeared, and flesh and blood splattered everywhere. Even the saint-level soft armor he wore could not withstand the power of the explosion from Chen Hao's body. The runes shattered and the soft armor cracked. Chapter 1429. Ah! How! Miao Xian, who had just calmed down a little, immediately cried out in surprise once again. This time, even Chen Shui, Helian Wuzi and the other girls, as well as Chen Nan and the other brothers and sisters, who were extremely confident in Chen Hao, were no exception. What's going on? Sword King Chen Hao, King Ying, Cheng Wanxiang, and Mo Shilin, Ruolin, Ruoxian and other masters who cared about Chen Hao were also stunned at this moment. Even they did not expect such a change. Although they did not know what had happened to Chen Hao, they could clearly see that it was definitely not a good thing. Especially the aura and Tao laws that were close to exploding. Once completely out of control, it was very likely that Chen Hao's body would explode and his body and soul would be destroyed. The winner has been decided. I'll help him. Before Chen Taishu's voice fell, he directly turned into a sword light and disappeared from the rostrum. Chen Hao was his nephew. Although he was not Chen Wuyang's biological son, he was no different from his own. How could he let anything happen to Chen Hao under his nose? However, no, brother Chen. Without any movement, Star River King stepped out and stood in front of Chen Taishu. His opponent was the new generation of Sword King, Chen Taishu. This made the top experts on the rostrum feel horrified. The Celestial River King had shown a lot of affection towards Chen Taishu before, indicating that he had deliberately tried to win over Chen Taishu. It made everyone think that even if Chen Taishu's strength was not as good as the Celestial River King's, the gap between them would not be too big. However, at this moment, the Celestial River King casually took a step forward. Everyone who had not seen the Celestial River King in action for many years understood that the Celestial River King's position, as the #1 person in the Great Thousand World, was unshakable. Brother Xiao, what are you doing? Chen Taishu stared at Star River King, who appeared in front of him out of thin air. He was also shocked. Although the other party's aura was not released at all, at this moment, it gave him an insurmountable feeling. Strong. Very strong. Chen Taishu, who was already the #1 swordsman, clearly felt that the gap between him and Star River King was insurmountable at this moment. The match is not over yet, Celestial River King said with a faint smile as he stared at Chen Taishu. A feeling that could not be disobeyed enveloped the world. At this moment he was the heavens and the earth. His words were the order of the world. No one could deny it. If it were anyone else, they would have retreated immediately. But, Brother Xiao, Chen Tianhezin's spirit was severely injured and collapsed. Together with the Yang spirit that went out of control, he was swallowed and merged by Li Yuan. Isn't the outcome of the battle obvious? Chen Taishu suppressed the irresistible feeling in his heart, and a fierce sword intent flashed in his eyes. Only then did he manage to break free from the Celestial River King's momentum. The Yin spirit was severely injured, but it did not collapse. As for the Yang spirit that went out of control, does it matter who swallows whom? They were meant to fuse. And now, Li Yuan is unable to fully control the other lives. Such a change is an opportunity for Tianhe and the other lives. How can it be uncontrollable? Prince Ying interrupted. You are also worried about him? The Celestial River King turned his head to look at Prince Ying and asked. Prince Ying's expression at this moment could not hide a trace of nervousness. Naturally, it could not escape the Celestial River King's eyes. He is the disciple of my new disciple, Chen Si. Naturally, I have to be concerned. Is that so? Ying, is there anyone in the world who knows you better than me? Haha. The Celestial River King laughed, and did not continue to ask the question. Instead, he continued. Including his original body, there are a total of 8 lives. Before, Li Yuan had fused with Chen Qi and another life, but he did not truly merge them. And Tianhe had fused with the other 4 lives, but he also did not merge them. And now that the 8 lives have suddenly merged, Li Yuan's soul origin power is unable to be controlled at all. You mean he should slowly merge them one by one? That's right. If he truly merged them into one, then there would be no problem with the next one. It is not that easy to become a fatty in one go. If he can do it, then it can only be said that his 9 lives profound technique has failed. Because besides his original body, the other clones are too weak. And the most fatal point is that he only has 8 lives. What do you mean? King Ying asked. Look. The Celestial River King looked at the center of the arena. Chi. Chi chi chi. It was also at this time that something even more shocking happened to Chen Hao. In the explosion of flesh and blood, an incomparably powerful aura shot up into the sky, jumping out of Chen Hao's body. However, under the restraint of Chen Hao's aura, they appeared around him and froze in the void. 1, 2, 3. The aura of the Mad Demon Realm, the Tao Manifestation Immortal Fruit Tree, and the Spirit Spring Sea? The girls and Chen Hao's siblings all exclaimed at this moment. The first 3 auras that escaped were the auras of Chen Hao's clones. Following that, the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th auras of the Tree of Life, Shaoqi, the second anima, and the Slaughter Life's auras all rushed out. In an instant, the auras of Chen Hao's second life to the 8th life, a total of 7 lives, including Chen Hao's original body, all appeared. Of the 8 auras, there was no doubt that the aura of Chen Hao's original body was the strongest. It was also the foundation that bound the other 7 auras together. However, although 6 of the other 7 auras didn't dissipate, they formed a clear division between them and the original body. They didn't give way to each other and were fiercely struggling, as if they could break free of the original body's aura at any time. The only aura that didn't struggle was the 7th life, Chen Qi. Chen Qi had lost to Chen Hao's original body in a completely fair battle, and he had lost wholeheartedly. This was one of the factors. More importantly, Chen Qi was the only life that Chen Hao had completely connected with. It could be said that he was an existence equal to Chen Hao's original body. Under such circumstances, there was almost no conflict between Chen Qi and the original body. The only difference was the time it took for them to merge. This, Chen Taishu, Prince Ying, and the other experts widened their eyes in shock. Sure enough, as the Star River King said, Chen Hao's 7 clones were on the verge of losing control. Obviously, Chen Hao's original body was forcibly holding on. Of the 7 lives, besides Chen Qi, the other 6 could break free at any time. Wang. Chi chi chi. Chen Hao's body suddenly shook again. In an instant, endless runes rose up. Roar! Amidst the raging energy and splashing blood, Chen Hao's arms were stretched out. His long hair fluttered in the wind as he madly roared. At the same time, his spiritual altar completely bloomed. The resplendent crystal light was so dazzling that no one dared to look directly at it. Even more astonishing was that within the resplendent crystal light, his special ability, the fiery golden eyes, was faintly flashing. Chapter 1430. Suppress him. Chi. Chi chi chi. Along with Chen Hao's boundlessly cold shout, the countless talismans suddenly condensed into strands of peerlessly sharp sword light. In an instant, they formed a dense net of swords that interweaved with the heavens and the earth like an inescapable net. What? At this moment, countless people exclaimed, especially the cultivators from the Daoyuo Golden Wonderland and the Grand Mist Supremacy Realm. They were so shocked that they could not be described with words. His divine ability was fused with his sword Dao, and then it formed a dense sword net that covered the sky and covered the sun. It would be fine if it was just a sword net, But every single sword light that Chen Hao formed actually had a connection. Their auras resonated with each other, and they relied on each other. Once one sword light was attacked, it would definitely be attacked by countless sword lights. What a powerful sword formation! It's so complicated, but he can actually control it in such a state. It's really unbelievable. His state of mind, willpower, and endurance are definitely at a level that makes one's hair stand on end. Countless people exclaimed. Suppress? This is clearly killing. Unlike the crowd, who was shocked by Chen Hao's abnormal strength, the old man on the rostrum, as well as countless true immortal kings and Dao-severing true immortals, were puzzled when they saw the sword formation that Chen Hao had sent out. That sword formation was clearly a killing sword formation. How could it be used to suppress? That was impossible. Even true immortal king realm experts thought so. It seems that he's already confirmed that he can't control the rioting clones. After Chen Hao's 7 lives escaped, all the cultivators already knew what was going on. The courage of a warrior to cut off his wrist is also rare and commendable. It's just a pity that he can't truly merge the 7 clones after painstakingly cultivating them. Yes, it's such a pity. However, at this point, there's no other way. That's right. They're already in one physical body. Once the 7 lives escape, there's only one result. They'll explode and die, their bodies and souls destroyed. If the 7 lives still had their fleshly bodies and soul palaces, then they would be able to escape. But now, they were actually sharing their fleshly bodies and soul palaces with Chen Hao. It was just that they had yet to truly become one. Therefore, once the 7 clones escaped, Chen Hao's main body, who controlled the soul palace and the body, had no chance of surviving. What a pity, what a pity! If his other lives, such as Chen Tianhe, had escaped, what would have happened? The soul of a rootless duckweed. It required a true immortal king realm expert to condense a soul palace and reconstruct a golden body for it to recover. However, whether or not he can recover his previous innate talent and strength, it would depend on the strength of the person who condensed it. Chen Tianhe should have no problems with it. His master is a celestial river king. I see. No wonder the celestial river king stopped the sword king. Countless cultivators discussed among themselves. The sword king Chen Hao and King Ying also thought so. However, in the face of the number 1 person in the great world of Xiandi, there was nothing they could do. After all, the competition between Chen Hao and Chen Tianhe was within the rules. Since they knew that the outcome of the competition had not been decided, they could not violate the rules of the competition. It was a long story, but in fact it happened in an instant. Just as the crowd was feeling sorry for Chen Hao's fiery golden eyes suddenly emitted a dazzling golden light with a chi sound. In an instant, an incomparably sacred aura quickly spread out and integrated into the sword net. At this moment, the dazzling golden light was so sacred that it made countless cultivators, even those of a higher realm, and even those of the true immortal king realm, feel a sense of worship. It filled every single sword light of the sword net. Godhood. The godhood of an immortal emperor. Oh my God! At this moment, whether it was the spectators on Deerchaser Peak or the mighty figures in the celestial realm, they all exclaimed. In particular, the mighty figure of the true immortal king in charge of the commentary in the celestial realm caused countless cultivators in the celestial realm to explode. Bastard! Ah! He actually used Xichao's godhood? Li Wuxiang, the dean of Tanglong Academy, who could not wait for Chen Hao to explode and die immediately, exploded in anger when he sensed the aura contained in the golden light. He almost vomited blood and died. However, soon after, Li Wuxiang seemed to have thought of something. His eyes widened, and he sucked in a breath of cold air. The shock in his heart had reached an indescribable level. How is this possible? Even if he obtained Xichao's godhood, how could he control it? It's impossible, impossible. How did he do it? Li Wuxiang muttered to himself. He was so shocked that his words were trembling. That was a godhood that only the spirits of all living beings who reincarnated as immortal emperors could possess. To be more precise, it was something that only immortal emperors could truly possess. Even if it was an expert at the true immortal king realm or immortal emperor. It was said in the remnant records, and some inherited memories that no one could easily control another's godhood. The godhood was the fruit of the immortal emperor's strongest great Tao. Every cultivator's Tao was different from each other. At most, one could comprehend the mysteries contained in the godhood and use it for reference. It was almost impossible to control it. However, Chen Hao actually used Shi Chao's godhood. How could Li Wuxiang not be shocked? Buzz. Buzz buzz buzz. A slender and tall figure faintly appeared in the golden light. He stood in the void above the sword net, and looked down at the world. He naturally revealed an aura of disdain for the world. Ah, isn't this figure? Isn't this the Tanglong Academy's Shi Chao who was in the limelight at the beginning of the team competition? Tanglong and Shi Chao were killed by Li Yuan of the University of Dahua in the team competition and obtained his godhood. No, even if he obtained Tanglong's godhood, how could he use it? After Li Wuxiang, when the pressure of the godhood continued to increase and caused Shi Chao's figure to appear, countless experts were shocked. Before this, not everyone knew about the matter between Chen Hao and Shi Chao. After all, during the team competition there was no image. They only knew that the University of Dahua and the Tanglong Academy met and Tanglong retreated. After the competition, Shi Chao did not appear again. Godhood. At this moment, the calm Star River King frowned slightly. A touch of imperceptible excitement and shock flashed in his eyes. This is the real godhood. The Star River King's powerful mind perception directly pierced through time and space and quietly integrated into Shi Chao's figure. He felt the godhood's aura that made him want to submit to it. He was extremely excited. Half-step Immortal Emperor, the #1 Immortal Emperor in the Great Thousand World, he was only a hair's breadth away from breaking the legend and becoming a lofty Immortal Emperor. However, after 20 million years, he hadn't made any progress. He was clearly one step away, but there was still a layer of membrane that he couldn't break through. Chapter 1431. Now, the divine spark of an immortal emperor had finally appeared in front of the Star River King. The Celestial River King had long known that the spirits of all living beings would soon surface. In this year's ranking competition, the Celestial River King had already locked onto dozens of people who might be the reincarnations of immortal emperors. However, he had not taken any action for the time being. Therefore, the appearance of Shi Chao's godhead and the feeling of the godhead's aura made him extremely excited. The Star River King knew very well that if he relied on himself, he might stop at the half-step Immortal Emperor realm for the rest of his life. After all, he was already at the peak of this world, and had gathered the strongest luck. He was invincible, and it was impossible for him to have any opportunities unless he left the great world of Xiandi. But where could he find a better place than the great world of Xiandi? Because of this, the divine spark might be his only hope. Even if he could not refine the divine spark, he believed that he could learn a little bit from the aura of the divine spark and perfect his great Tao. Only in this way could he have a chance to cultivate and step into the immortal emperor realm. A divine spark is a great Tao, and this kid can actually control the great Tao of others. How can it be described as simple? The Star River King secretly thought. When the Star River King obtained Chen Tianhe as his disciple, he knew that Chen Tianhe's original body was not simple. Not to mention anything else, just by condensing the terrifying power of faith into Chen Tianhe and letting Chen Tianhe control it, he could infer that Chen Tianhe not only had countless devout believers, but also a huge number of cultivators. Even the total number of cultivators in a medium-sized vast thousand world could not be compared to him. Moreover, he must have a stronger power, otherwise he would not have let Chen Tianhe control the power of faith. And Chen Tianhe's original body could gather such a majestic power of faith at such a young age. What did it mean? It meant that his original body must have relied on his heaven-defying talent to gain the admiration of countless cultivators in the Daoyuo Golden Wonderland. After learning about Chen Hao's other lives, the Star River King was even more certain that Chen Tianhe's original body was not simple, because almost every life had its own characteristics. It was not an exaggeration to say that they were completely different, and each of them was very strong. As the founder of the 9 Lives Profound technique, he believed that he could not do it. This was because his Tao could not merge completely different Tao laws together. And now, Chen Hao's original body could actually use other people's godhead, which was even more inconceivable. We have to take him down no matter what. It would be even better if he could self-destruct at this time. His godhead can't be destroyed. The Celestial River King felt slightly excited, and his eyes could not help but light up. At this time, if Chen Hao self-destructed, his divine deity would definitely appear, and Shi Chao's divine deity would also regain its freedom. There was no doubt about this. What a pity. Celestial River King shook his head slightly, his eyes flashing. As soon as Shi Chao's godhood appeared, it only took a moment for Chen Tianhe and the others to submit to it. At this moment, Chen Hao, whose physical body had stopped exploding, directly controlled the sword net to shrink. Like catching turtles in a jar, he once again sucked the clones into his glabella. The Celestial River King did not notice that Prince Ying, who seemed to be staring at the battle ring in shock, was actually observing every move he made. The person who knew the Celestial River King the best in the world was none other than Prince Ying. Although the Celestial River King controlled his expression to the point of perfection, Prince Ying still saw through some clues, which made Prince Ying even more worried. Little brother Chen. Sword King Chen Taishi was slightly surprised that Prince Ying took the initiative to send him a message. Do you like Chen Hao a lot? Cough cough. I was talking about Li Yuan. Under the tense situation, Prince Ying directly said Chen Hao's name, but just as he finished speaking, he realized that Chen Taishu might not know the name Chen Hao, so he hurriedly added. I know, Prince Ying, I know about Chen Hao's situation, and I also know about your relationship with him, and about the ancient chaos Great Thousand World. Ah? This time it was Prince Ying's turn to be surprised. In fact, when Chen Hao confirmed that Chen Taishu was his uncle, he told him everything about his father and the ancient chaos Great Thousand World, including what happened between Yi Lan, Prince Ying and the Celestial River King, and the development of the great world of Xiandi and the ancient chaos Great Thousand World. Therefore, Chen Taishu knew about the relationship between Prince Ying and Chen Hao. However, the information that Prince Ying got from Xi Xian was much less. Even Xi Xian did not know about the real relationship between Chen Hao and Chen Taishu, let alone Prince Ying. I wonder if Prince Ying still remembers my brother? Your younger brother. Oh, let me think. You have the Sword Emperor's body, while he has the Martial Emperor's body. In terms of pure talent, he is stronger than you. However, he seems to have disappeared for a very, very long time, right? Prince Ying said. At Prince Ying's level and age, he had experienced too much. Regularly clearing the useless memory fragments, which was the cutting path, was already something that he had to do. Otherwise, an expert with a photographic memory would definitely not use the word think. And this was based on the information that Chen Taishu had. Yes. He entered the endless cycle of reincarnation, and sealed his martial supreme body. Why did he seal it? Oh, I understand. He is versatile but not proficient. He could not control it, right? Yes. It's been tens of millions of years. I always thought that my brother had met a true immortal king in the endless cycle of reincarnation, and had truly fallen. I never thought that I would suddenly receive news about my brother. You're saying all this. Could it be that Chen Hao is related to your brother? Your brother seems to be called Chen Wuliang. Yes, Chen Wuliang. Ah, so it's him. I understand now. Prince Ying suddenly remembered the information that Xi Xian had given him about Chen Hao's father, Chen Wuliang. At this moment, even without Chen Taishu saying anything, Prince Ying already knew the relationship between him and Chen Hao. This was a relationship worthy of trust. Prince Ying, what do you want to say to me? As the sword puppet, Chen Taishu went straight to the point after explaining. The Celestial River King covets Chen Hao. I know that. Otherwise, he wouldn't have said those things to me before. I'm not talking about becoming his disciple. He definitely doesn't covet a disciple. You don't know how strong his obsession to reach the peak of the martial Tao is. Becoming an immortal emperor is his greatest goal. For this goal, he would do anything. Everything is above him. The only thing in his heart is the martial Tao. Prince Ying's voice carried a hint of sorrow. Prince Ying, what do you mean? Godhood. He covets the godhood. Moreover, it's Chen Hao's godhood. Understanding the mysteries of the godhood may be one of the best ways to become an immortal emperor. His expression already tells me that he will not let Chen Hao go. What he wants to do, no one can stop him. I don't have the confidence to do it alone. He is a half-step immortal emperor. Although his cultivation level has stagnated for many years, his battle prowess seems to have increased. Although I've been working hard, the gap between us is still growing. Chapter 1432. King Ying, I understand what you mean. Don't worry, I will do my best to help you. No matter what, we must protect Chen Hao. He is not only my nephew, but also the son-in-law of all my brother's daughters. My niece's son-in-law, my Tushu. I have been lonely for many years. Although the time is not ripe yet, the possibility of teaming up with you to challenge the invincible legend of the Star River King is something that I have always longed for. Good, that's good. Whether my poor daughter can return or not depends on Chen Hao. Even if we have to shed all pretense of cordiality, we must ensure his safety. However, King Ying, he won't make a move now, right? Of course not now. If he wants to make a move, it will be after the competition. However, at this moment, he must have locked on to Chen Hao. It would be impossible to escape from his sight. Of course, he will definitely find a reason for himself. This kind of thing is what he is best at. Understood. The two of them finished their discussion without batting an eyelid. Phew. At this moment, Chen Hao let out a long sigh of relief and opened his eyes. After activating Shi Chao's godhead to suppress, Chen Hao finally absorbed all 7 lives into his soul palace and suppressed them. Finally, I've survived. I didn't expect the 8 lives to be so strong after fusing together. Even with my soul power, it almost collapsed. What a monster. Cough cough, it seems like it's all me. After returning to his original appearance and completely suppressing the 7 lives, Chen Hao felt extremely relaxed. His mood became exceptionally comfortable in an instant. The 7 clones were all settled, and it was impossible for them to cause any more trouble. Without a doubt, Chen Hao's worries were solved. He only needed some time to completely fuse with them. Moreover, he had been hiding under the Great Change technique for all these years. Although it did not affect his strength, when he undid the concealment at this time, whether it was his mood, state of mind, or feeling, they all became incomparably bright. It was as refreshing as unsheathing the sword of raising eyebrows. The one who was observing me through the barrier must be that old man. Chen Hao had only managed to borrow Shi Chao's godhead after the fiery golden eyes had been fully activated. The fiery golden eyes was an extraordinary ability that could ignore realms. Even a half-step immortal emperor's divine sense could not escape Chen Hao's senses when he sensed that Chen Hao was near him. Although Chen Hao did not recognize the aura of this spiritual sense, even if he used his toes to think, he could guess that it belonged to a celestial river king, whose spiritual sense could pass through the barrier without being discovered by the arbitration team. Or should I say, even if I find out, I will pretend not to know. Except for the strongest person in the great world of CND, the half-step immortal emperor celestial river king, no one else could achieve such a feat. Otherwise, if any expert could secretly send out their divine sense to interfere with the competition, wouldn't that be terrible? However, even though he knew that the other party had probed him, Chen Hao couldn't say anything. After all, it was just probing, and the other party didn't interfere with him. Besides, even if he interfered, what could he do? The strongest person, the pinnacle existence, had no rules in front of him, because he represented the rules. This was a world where the strong were respected. Can I announce the end now? Chen Hao calmed down and said lightly, with the demeanor of an expert. He deliberately emphasized, I am Dahua Li Yuan. Voila. The martial arts arena, which was still immersed in great shock, was broken by Chen Hao's calm and indifferent words. Dahua Li Yuan. Brother Fatty. No handsome guy. So strong, so handsome. Li Yuan. I love you. Li Yuan. I love you. All kinds of exclamations and screams broke out. Some female disciples couldn't resist the admiration for Chen Hao in their hearts and directly became Chen Hao's crazy fans. Do you see it? My eyes are bright. This is his true appearance. So handsome. I found that I really fell in love with him. Xian, do you regret it? What are you talking about? What's the use of a handsome man? What do I regret? Oofed, who was the one who kept saying that I liked a fatty with a terrible appearance? He. It's fine. If you regret it, just say it. You are me, I am you. Aren't we just Dao companions? We can share. Ruolan looked at the cold and arrogant Ruoxian charmingly and teased. In reality, she and Chenhao hadn't even started dating yet. However, the teasing between sisters didn't affect them. However, after Ruolan said this, Ruoxian turned her head and looked directly into her eyes. She didn't say anything for a long time, and her gaze became extremely complicated with a trace of surprise. For the first time, Ruolan, who had always seen people through their eyes, couldn't understand the Ruoxian she was most familiar with. What's wrong with you? Ruolan couldn't help but ask. You know? Ruoxian asked a question that Ruolan didn't understand. Know what? Xian, I can't understand your eyes. Could it be that you're hiding something? I'm your best sister. You're so unkind. Ruoxian was slightly stunned and immediately avoided Ruolan's gaze. It's nothing. No, you have to make it clear. What do I know? It's good that you don't know. We're the best sisters. Everything is enough. What do you say? I don't want to lose you. Ruoxian's cold and arrogant face showed a touch of bitterness. I know. You also like him, and you don't want to share with me, right? Xian, you can't do this. You know, he already has many Dao companions. If we go together, we'll be more competitive. Ruoxian was speechless, but this time she didn't deny it. Instead, she looked at Ruolan seriously and pretended to ponder for a moment before nodding heavily. Immediately, Ruolan intimately buried her head in Ruoxian's majestic twin peaks with a happy face. It seemed that she had completely forgotten that the object of their discussion was just a kid from the Daoyuo Golden Wonderland. Ruoxian stared at Chenhao, who returned to the top 10 contestants, and then looked in the direction of the Star River King with a complicated gaze. An imperceptible emotion flashed through her eyes. Good. Very good kid. I like him very much. Ha ha. Suddenly, the voice of an old woman resounded in everyone's ears as if it came from the ninth heaven. Endless immortal light poured down, and a majestic and unfathomable aura appeared at the same time. At this moment, even the Star River King looked up at the sky with a slight frown. She? King Ying said in surprise. It's her. Cheng Wanxiang rubbed his hands excitedly. Luoying King. Sword King Chen Taishu looked at the endless immortal light in the ninth heaven with a surprised expression. Luoying King, this is Luoying King? It's said that she's still alive, and her aura is very strong. Chapter 1433. Master. Xuefian shouted excitedly when she saw the figure. At the same time, she flew toward the figure descending from the ninth heaven. However, she was stopped by an extremely powerful aura. She was Xuefian's master, Lord Luoying, one of the 8 king-ranked powerhouses in ancient times. No one noticed that Ruoxian was surprised when she saw the figure. Her body trembled slightly, and she was even more excited than Xuefian. This was Lord Luoying, who had lived in seclusion in Dahua College for countless years. Only Cheng Wanxiang and the other core members knew about her. At this moment, even though her face was covered by a black veil and her body was hidden in a wide black robe, the falling blossom immortal light that had shaken the world hundreds of millions of years ago allowed countless top experts to recognize her identity and were incomparably shocked. For tens of millions of years, most people thought that Lord Luoying and the other king-ranked powerhouses had disappeared in the long river of history, and there was no news about them anymore. That was because of one person, the Star River King. The 8 king-ranked powerhouses rose together, and the Star River King led them alone and unified the great world of Xiandi. At that time, only Lord Ying was not affected. The reason was not a secret in the great world of Xiandi. Of course, most people were just guessing, and the specific truth was only known to those involved. Lord Luoying slowly landed on the rostrum in the rolling Dao principles and the colorful Luoying celestial light. Then she looked at Lord Star River. Luoying, is it really you? You are still alive? Lord Star River, the most powerful person in the great world of CND, seemed to be incoherent with excitement at this moment. His eyes were fixed on Lord Luoying. Not only am I alive, but I have also broken the seal, recovered my cultivation, and improved my cultivation. Are you disappointed? Disappointed? Luoying, how could I be disappointed? Back then, I looked for you for countless years. Both of you. Humph, no need to say more. I don't want to hear it. Lord Luoying waved her hand and interrupted Lord Star River. Luoying. Lord Ing swayed and came to Lord Luoying's side. How have you been all these years? I thought you. Ing, I'm fine. You're still so beautiful. I'm sorry. Don't say that, we are good sisters, the best of sisters forever. Queen Ing held Queen Luoying's hand, her expression emotional, her eyes sparkling uncontrollably. Star River King, King Ing, and King Luoying seemed to have a very complicated relationship. That's for sure. Among the 8 great ancient kings there were only 2 women, King Ing and King Luoying. Both of them were peerless geniuses, while King Xinghe, King of Saber, King of Sword, King of Wind, King of Monkey and King of 9 Serenities were all peerless geniuses. All of them were once young. How could they not have experienced love and hate? In my opinion, Xinghe King and Luoying King. If you don't want to die, don't make wild guesses. You guys are really bold. While some of the young cultivators were talking about Celestial River King, King Ing and King Luoying, the Academy's old men immediately stopped them. Why are you dressed like this? Prince Ing could not help but ask. I don't want to scare people. Ing, you really don't blame me? King Luoying stared at the charming King Ing. Her eyes were also sparkling as she asked eagerly. I have never blamed you. Sit with me. Ing, let's talk about it later. I'm here mainly to see the performance of our Dahua Academy's Li Yuan. Although King Luoying's voice was very soft, it was clearly heard by everyone. Obviously, she was deliberately expressing her attitude. Li Yuan? Dahua Academy? The crowd suddenly became restless. It was a pity that Chen Hao, who was sealed in the arena, could not hear it. Otherwise he would be surprised too. So you've been living in seclusion in Dahua Academy? King Ing was slightly surprised but also delighted. That's right. Is Li Yuan your disciple? King Ing asked deliberately. The appearance of King Luoying was undoubtedly a good thing for her. Knowing that King Luoying had specially come to watch Li Yuan's competition, she naturally wanted to help Chen Hao strengthen his momentum. Because even if she and King of Sword Chen Taishu joined forces, they would not have any confidence in defeating the powerful Celestial River King. No, but he's my disciple's future cultivation partner, which is also my Tu-Su. Master. Xuefian screamed directly. Her originally cold face instantly turned red. Undoubtedly, her master's words made her certain that the so-called fated person was Chen Hao. However, until now, she and Chen Hao had only become brothers and sisters. There were no sparks at all. Or rather, there was no chance for any sparks to fly between them. However, her master had said so in front of everyone. Especially when everyone around her knew that she had jumped into the air and called King Luoying master. How could she not be shy? She wanted to find a hole to hide in. I didn't know, Sister Fian. Ao Qian said. Sister Fian, brother's heart hurts. Although I had a hunch, when I really found out, it was still. Ling Feng deliberately teased. Don't talk nonsense. It's not what you think. That was just my master's prediction. Prediction. Aye. That's even more true. The legendary King Luoying King was most proficient in the art of divination. Wasn't that the art of divination? I know that. Ling Feng said confidently. At this moment, Ruoxian bit her lips and looked at King Luoying with a complicated gaze. Was Tu-Su just Tu-Su? King of Swords Chen Taishu was speechless. Tu-Su again. Li Yuan of Dahua wins. At this moment, the host's voice finally sounded and announced Li Yuan's victory. Although this was an extra battle to determine the top 10 candidates, everyone was sure that this was an extremely exciting battle. It was a battle that was rarely seen even in the top 10. Li Yuan of Dahua had won. Chen Tianhe, who was estimated to be the strongest, had disappeared and became a part of Li Yuan's original body. This made Li Yuan of Dahua become the champion, overshadowing the #1 Grand Luo of the Xiao clan, Xiao Jiutian. I will now officially announce the top 10 candidates. The rankings are Xiao Jiutian Ningjing Li Yuan, Miao Xian, Qingyang Buchun Kongying Baihua, Lu Fei and Fan Jianchen. Fan Jianchen was a new contestant, and he was ranked 11th in the previous evaluation. Now those who think that they are stronger than any of the top 10 candidates can start the challenge. If they succeed, they will become one of the top 10 candidates. If they fail, they will be removed from the top 10. However, they will still have one chance to challenge. I believe everyone is clear about the rules. Alright, let's begin. The host announced. I'll go. As soon as the host finished speaking, a young cultivator from the top 100 who had an imposing appearance and reserved spirit stepped out and took the lead to enter the ring. Su Junfeng Academy Nun. The moment this cultivator stepped onto the stage, his information was displayed in the air above the stage. Everyone was certain that he was a hidden monster that had just appeared. Chapter 1434. I was eliminated by Su Junfeng. He's definitely a hidden expert. He was in the same group as me in the preliminary round, and his aura wasn't anything special. But when I challenged him, he easily defeated me. After that, he didn't attract anyone's attention and entered the top 100. I knew that he was hiding his strength, and he's really challenging the top 10. He was the one who eliminated me in the 3rd round. I initially thought that I had underestimated him, but I never expected that he would dare to challenge the top 10. It looks like he's hiding quite a bit. Immediately, many cultivators in the crowd began to discuss contestants who could enter the top 100. If they were not seeded contestants, they must have eliminated many cultivators. Even if they kept a low profile, those who had been eliminated were still aware of the situation. But even if he's hiding quite a bit, he shouldn't be that strong. If I'm not wrong, Su Juanfeng's opponent must be Fan Jianchen. That's for sure. Fan Jianchen is undoubtedly the weakest among the top 10. He's even weaker than Lu Fei, not to mention the others. As Su Junfeng's gaze slowly swept across the top 10 contestants' seats in the ring, choosing his opponent to challenge, the crowd buzzed with discussion. Su Junfeng started looking at Xiao Jiutian until he saw Fan Jianchen. Suddenly, his gaze shifted and locked onto Buchun. Everyone was surprised. Su Junfeng wasn't going to challenge Fan Jianchen, who was the weakest. I challenge Buchun. At this moment, Su Junfeng said in a low voice. At the same time, his originally restrained aura suddenly exploded out with a bang, and his battle intent soared. What? Buchun was startled. His brows knitted together, and his eyes flashed with anger. Buchun was the eldest disciple of the Snowdrift Academy's Daoyuo Golden Wonderland. He was much stronger than Linghu Piaoxue, who had participated in the performance. Although Buchun didn't dare to say that he could enter the top 3, he had a high chance of entering the top 5. It wouldn't be a problem for him to enter the 6th. But the first challenger actually chose him. This made him feel that Su Junfeng was trying to humiliate him. After all, challengers usually chose the weakest, so why would Su Junfeng choose him? The spectators were also shocked. They never expected that Su Junfeng would actually challenge Buchun. At the same time, they were shocked by the aura that Su Junfeng had suddenly erupted at this moment. What a powerful aura. Could this Su Junfeng be the spirit of all living things? It should be. Is this his true strength? His aura is indeed powerful, and it's not any weaker than Buchun's. I understand now. Su Junfeng doesn't want to hide anything anymore. Now that the top 10 is determined, he directly challenged someone like Buchun. That way, there's a small chance that the other challengers will choose him. That way, we can avoid continuous battles. Yes, that should be the case. Humph challenge me? You have indeed hidden quite a bit, but this kind of aura is only barely on par with my current aura. Do you think I haven't hidden anything? If you had challenged someone else, you might have had a chance. Unfortunately, you overestimated yourself and dared to challenge me. Then let me, Buchun, end your competition. Come on. Buchun's figure flickered, and he appeared before Su Junfeng. His battle intent soared, and flames of fury burned within him. Really? It's not up to you to decide who ends the competition. Su Junfeng looked at Bu Chen with disdain. Ha ha. How arrogant. Since that's the case, I'll show you my true strength. Don't admit defeat if you have the guts. I'll crush you. Boom. Bu Chen's aura suddenly exploded. Dao laws surged, and runes flickered. In the blink of an eye, gusts of wind formed around him. They spun faster and faster, turning into a terrifying whirlwind. Shockwaves spread out, causing the space around the deer chaser peak to violently fluctuate. The everlasting helix art. I never thought that senior brother Bu Chen would use one of the Snowdrift Academy's 3 great techniques, the everlasting helix art. Senior brother Bu Chen is clearly furious. This whirlwind can be used both offensively and defensively. It'll be even more terrifying if it's used together with the universal snowfall art. Of course. But the everlasting helix art should be enough to deal with Su Junfeng. The Snowdrift Academy's disciples discussed. They knew how terrifying Bu Chen was, so they were naturally confident in him. Su Junfeng didn't panic at all when he saw Bu Chen's terrifying attack. Su Junfeng, die for me. Bu Chen roared and slammed his palms forward. Whoosh. The terrifying hurricane vortex, the power contained within increased by several times in an instant, charging towards Su Junfeng with an astonishing momentum. When the whirlwind arrived before Su Junfeng, he suddenly unleashed a series of profound runes that circled around the whirlwind to attack Bu Chen's vitals. They blocked Bu Chen's path of escape from all directions. What was even more terrifying was that Su Junfeng didn't retreat. Instead, he charged forward and charged into the whirlwind under everyone's shocked gazes. At this moment, Su Junfeng's body was covered in a dazzling golden light. It was as if he had turned into a golden man as he threw out a palm. Boom. A tyrannical power gushed out like a flash flood. Rumble. In an instant, the whirlwind shattered like a flower in a mirror. Then the golden palm landed on Bu Chen's body. Boom. Whoosh. Bu Chen was sent flying like a kite with a broken string as blood spurted out from his mouth. It took a full minute for Bu Chen to fall from the sky and crash into the ground. He struggled to get up, but he couldn't. Countless spectators were shocked when they saw a golden palm imprint on Bu Chen's armor. To be more precise, it was a golden palm imprint that pierced through the armor and flesh. No one dared to believe that this was the result. The Snowdrift Academy's chief disciple was definitely in the middle of the top 10. But Bu Chen, who was extremely powerful in everyone's hearts, had lost so easily. Moreover, he had lost so thoroughly. Bu Chen had been careless, but the main reason was that Su Junfeng was too strong. Countless people sucked in a breath of cold air. And the way they looked at Su Junfeng quietly underwent a subtle change. Bu Chen was defeated, and Su Junfeng was victorious. After the host announced the result of the battle, a resplendent light enveloped the heavily injured Bu Chen and sent him off the stage. As for the victor, Su Junfeng, he stepped into the top 10. Continue. My turn. Whoosh. As soon as the host finished speaking, the second challenger impatiently stepped into the ring. Chapter 1435. Tang Haotian Academy None. Like Su Junfeng, Tang Haotian didn't belong to any academy or power. Without giving the audience time to guess, Tang Haotian immediately announced his opponent, Bai Hua, as soon as he stepped onto the stage. In the eyes of the crowd, Bai Hua and Lu Fei were on the same level. Bai Hua was only slightly stronger than Fan Jianchen, but they were both weaker in the top 10. Therefore, it wasn't surprising that Tang Haotian challenged her. However, Bai Hua was only weak when compared to heaven-defying characters like Xiao Jiutian and Chen Hao. She was a terrifying existence to cultivators in the same realm. Since he dares to challenge her, he should have at least a 20% chance of winning. That was what most people thought. In the past, at least 7 of the top 10 would be able to retain their position. On average, the challengers only had a 30% chance of winning. Furthermore, those who were eliminated were the 3 weakest in the top 10. But unexpectedly, the unknown Tang Haotian ended his battle in the time it took to brew a cup of tea and heavily injured Bai Hua. Even with the energy recovery, Bai Hua wouldn't be able to recover to her peak in a short period of time. This meant that Bai Hua was the same as Bu Chen after being eliminated. This was undoubtedly cruel. It also made everyone realize how terrifying the hidden experts this time were. But what shocked the crowd even more were the next few battles. In the third battle, Wei Wufa challenged Fan Jianchen and won. Fan Jianchen was heavily injured and couldn't fight anymore. In the fourth battle, Zhan Yuanzhao challenged Lu Fei and won. Lu Fei was heavily injured and couldn't fight anymore. In the fifth battle, Song Longyuan challenged Kong Ying and won. Kong Ying was defeated. Kong Ying was the soul of all things in the Emperor Star secret realm that Chen Hao had entered. He had displayed shocking strength in the group test, but he was defeated. What was even more terrifying was that Kong Ying, who couldn't break through the shackles of the Grand Tao, couldn't change the situation even after activating his godhead. The soul of all things, Kong Ying, was defeated. Who else wants to challenge? The host's voice carried a trace of shock as he swept his gaze across the top 100. Not to mention an expert like him. Even the top powerhouses on the rostrum did not expect this year's battle of the top 10 to be so cruel. This was because even they could not tell who was hiding their aura in the top 100. Up until now, 5 people had already been eliminated, which was 50%. This was simply inconceivable. Those who want to challenge, please get on the stage quickly. The host asked again when he saw no response from the crowd. In his opinion, if someone were to challenge him again, no matter who it was, no matter whether they succeeded or not, it would still be a shocking matter. After all, up until now, the 5 people who had not been challenged were Xiao Jiutian, Ning Jing, Li Yuan, Miao Xian, and Qin Yang. They were all terrifying existences. No one doubted this. One was Xiao family's number 1 Daoyuo Jingxian, the other was Jade Maiden Palace's number 1 Daoyuo Jingxian, and 2 were Sword King's direct disciples. As for Li Yuan, there was no need to even mention him. As for the 5 who succeeded in the challenge, Song Longyuan, who defeated Kong Ying, was definitely in existence close to Miao Xian and Qin Yang in the eyes of the crowd. Whether he was stronger or not, they would only know after the battle. The other 4 had also won in a strong manner. Just based on their performance, it was enough to place them in the top 10. Not to mention, they might not have revealed their strongest strength yet. However, no one else wants to challenge? Just when everyone thought that the top 10 list was about to be confirmed, an inconspicuous figure stepped out from the top 100 and said indifferently, "Since there's no one else, I'll do it." With a single step, the figure appeared in the arena. Gu Xian school faction, none. Similarly, there was only one name, Gu Xian. "I'll choose you." Gu Xian's gaze locked onto one person and said indifferently, "Qin Yang." It can't be? He dares to challenge Qin Yang? He's simply courting death. Arrogant and ignorant. How can he compare to senior brother Qin Yang? You have to know that in our Zhulu Academy, senior brother Qin Yang can contend with Chen Tianhe. I don't know why senior brother Qin Yang gave up during the chief disciple selection. Yes, Master Zhentian said that senior brother Qin Yang's state of mind has already reached the realm of being as kind as water, invulnerable to all techniques. Although he has the body of a sword emperor, he's not inferior to his junior sister Miao Xian, who has the body of a sword emperor. More importantly, he's the Sword King's disciple. I don't dare to say that he's number 1, but he definitely has hopes of being in the top 3. That's right, this Gu Xian is really arrogant, full of arrogance. Even though Gu Xian, who had a tall and slender figure, sword-like brows, starry eyes, and an extraordinary bearing, didn't say the name of the person he challenged, his gaze clearly told everyone that the person he challenged was Qin Yang. This directly caused the crowd to explode. The Zhulu Academy disciples were even more incredulous, thinking that Gu Xian was courting death. Without Chen Tianhe, Qin Yang, who had already displayed his brilliance several times in the academy, especially at the end of the chief disciple selection, and almost didn't have a showdown with Chen Tianhe. At this moment, he was definitely the hope of Zhulu Academy. Of course, there was also Miao Xian. Me? Qin Yang stood with his hands behind his back, facing Gu Xian's gaze, stepped out from the crowd and smiled faintly. Looks like in your eyes I'm the weakest. That's not it. In my eyes you're ranked 4th or 5th. I disdain to fight those weaker than you. And it's naturally better to leave those stronger than you for later. Therefore I challenge you. Alright, then let's begin. Be mentally prepared. I'm a person who doesn't show mercy. This day next year may be the anniversary of your death. Gu Xian's voice was still indifferent, as if he was talking about something that couldn't be more normal. Voila. But Gu Xian's words directly caused the crowd to explode. Too arrogant. You don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. It's impossible to even defeat Qin Yang. And you still want to kill him? Countless spectators were extremely displeased with Gu Xian's arrogance, especially the Zhulu Academy cultivators. Killing someone required much more strength than defeating someone. Unless it was an absolute suppression and a one-hit kill, causing the token's protection to be unable to activate in time. It was impossible to do so. To be able to seriously injure someone like the previous 5 people was already very impressive. However, the buzz of discussion turned into absolute silence in an instant. A terrifying pressure quietly spread out from Gu Xian's body. Like his indifferent expression, there wasn't too much of a fluctuation of aura, but it directly affected the cultivators' hearts. Invincible momentum. And it was an invincible momentum that was terrifyingly strong. Even compared to the invincible momentum that Chen Hao and Chen Tianhe had previously displayed, it was much stronger. At the same time, a mysterious seal with an ancient aura appeared between Gu Xian's eyebrows. It was like a godhead, but its aura was completely different, causing people to not dare to look at it directly. Qin Yang frowned slightly. Chapter 1436. Clang. Qin Yang unsheathed his sword. The sharp sword essence cut through the sky, but it couldn't erase the influence of Gu Xian's invincible momentum. That surprised Qin Yang and made him feel uneasy. His state of mind was as kind as water and invincible. Even Chen Tianhe, who ranked first in the previous evaluation, couldn't give him such a feeling. Is it because of the rune? Qin Yang thought. Then he said in a low voice, "It's useless to say more. Come on." At that moment, Chen Hao and the others were also staring at the rune between Gu Xian's eyebrows in shock. "It's your bad luck to be chosen by me. Don't say that I didn't give you a chance. It's not too late to admit defeat. Otherwise you'll lose your life." Gu Xian said. "You talk too much." Qin Yang, who was not easily angered, was irritated by Gu Xian's arrogance. He said, "I'd like to see if you can kill me. You're dreaming." Oh. Gu Xian's face darkened. Killing intent flashed in his eyes. He said calmly but aggressively, "Since you think so, don't blame me for not giving you a chance. What a pity. Come on, I'll give you 3 moves." At this moment, the ancient seal on Gu Xuanmei's soul altar suddenly doubled in strength. The invincible momentum was like a mountain pressing down on Qin Yang's heart. She looked at Qin Yang as if he was looking at a dead man. Such a strong momentum. Through the bounded domain, the onlookers were all shocked. Even masters like Sword King Chen Taishi were no exception. Such a strong momentum and invincible momentum must have been honed through countless bloody battles. However, Gu Xian's life aura was only 30,000 years old. Even if he fought every day, it would be difficult for him to reach such a level. Whoosh. Qin Yang didn't speak again. Instead, he walked toward Gu Xian with his sword in hand. He didn't fly in the air. He just approached step by step. With every step, his sword essence became stronger and weaker because of the influence of Gu Xian's invincible momentum. 5 steps, 10 steps. The sharp sword essence was finally formed. The sword essence was formed. The suppression of the invincible momentum finally disappeared. It's time. Qi. At this moment, Gu Xian smiled as if everything was under his control. The truth was just as Gu Xian had said. Qin Yang raised his sword and attacked. Rumble. The surrounding air was directly detonated by the sharp sword energy. Sword breaks the universe. Qin Yang shouted. At the moment when the sword intent and fighting spirit soared to the peak, he took the initiative to attack. Heaven, earth, man and sword merged into one, forming a heavenly sword light. He arrived in front of Gu Xian and stabbed out. One move. When Qin Yang's sword light was about to pierce Gu Xian's heart, the ancient seal between Gu Xian's eyebrows suddenly lit up. His body instantly turned into a gust of wind, and mysteriously dodged Qin Yang's attack. Sword shaking the 9 heavens. 2 moves. Sword devours the world. 3 moves. The sword light and the sword intent and power that each move carried were extremely shocking. It was much stronger than the previous few battles, and it also clearly allowed everyone to see how terrifying Qin Yang's battle strength was. However, what made everyone feel even more terrified was Gu Xian. It was still the same indifferent and arrogant voice, but when it was spoken under Qin Yang's sharp and powerful attack, it gave people a completely different feeling. That nimble and fleeting figure actually easily received 3 of Qin Yang's moves, displaying an extremely high level of strength. I didn't see it wrongly, right? How can Gu Xian be so strong? 3 moves. He actually gave Qin Yang 3 moves, and he's fine. What a mysterious ability. Qin Yang's attack is not weak, but he could actually take it so miraculously, and there wasn't even a bit of a head-on collision. It's incredible. Gu Xian's strength has really reached a terrifying level. From the looks of it, the words he said earlier were not merely arrogant words to infuriate Qin Yang. The onlookers discussed. 3 moves have passed. Your strength is indeed not bad, but unfortunately compared to me Gu Xian there is still a gap. I gave you a chance but you didn't take it. Okay, let's end it here. Boom. Along with Gu Xian's voice, a golden light column suddenly shot out from his body, soaring into the sky. In an instant, a terrifying and mysterious energy fluctuation crazily spread to the surroundings. Whoosh! A fierce wind blew, gravel flew, the mountains shook, and the earth wailed. The scene of the underworld appeared again. So powerful. It's much clearer than the scene that appeared in Li Yuan's mind, too powerful. Could it be that Gu Xian has reached the realm of yin and yang as one? It should be. His current aura is very strong, obviously different from Li Yuan's yin attack. He has reached the realm of yin and yang as one. Countless people cried out in surprise and disgust. Gu Xian's body slowly rose into the void, with golden light shining everywhere, and his essence, qi and spirit seemed to connect the 9 heavens and 10 lands. He looked like a god descending, especially the ancient seal between his eyebrows, which was more like an ancient immortal emperor. A terrifying pressure swept across the world, crossing yin and yang. Not to mention Qin Yang, who bore the brunt of it. Even the practitioners on the boundary clearly felt Gu Xian's terror. Thump. At this moment, Gu Xian's tongue blossomed like a golden lotus, and he seemed to casually point at Qin Yang. Whoosh! A huge golden finger that shook the world was formed in an instant, and wherever it passed, the energy of heaven and earth was directly swallowed into a vacuum. It grew bigger and bigger, and the sky changed color. In the eyes of the onlooking practitioners, Gu Xian's finger seemed to be sucking up all the energy of heaven and earth, destroying everything, and even heaven and earth could not bear its power. In the end, it was really only the size of a finger, but the power it contained was extremely condensed and terrifying. Senior brother, watch out. At this moment, even Miao Xian was shocked, and she could not help but exclaim, "What a freak!" Chen Hao's pupils also contracted, and he was shocked. Even he did not expect Gu Xian to be so powerful. Gu Xian's absolute power was not very strong. To be exact, it was on par with Qin Yang, and in Chen Hao's eyes, it was definitely inferior to him. However, his casual finger contained the aura of the great Tao of Supreme, and the power of heaven and earth that was used to an unbelievable extent. All matter, all laws, all energy, including time, space, past, present, and future, seemed to be contained in the changes of this finger. Heaven and earth were used by it. Roar! Feeling the huge pressure, Qin Yang let out a long roar, and crazily urged his power to condense his strongest sword. All the power in his body, all his cultivation, gathered into the sword, and condensed into the sword. As the emperor of sword puppets, he had the unyielding spirit. Once the battle started, he would definitely charge forward bravely, no matter how strong the enemy was. Chapter 1437. Oh no! Sword King Chen Taishu's expression changed before the attacks of the two clashed. Unfortunately, no one could stop it. Boom! Rumble! When the attacks met, there was an explosion. Terrifying energy waves spread in all directions. Both the onlookers and the spectators in the immortal realm were horrified. The sword radiance was annihilated. The terrifying golden finger radiance swallowed the energy of the sword radiance and became stronger. Puff! The moment the sword radiance was destroyed, Qin Yang was like a kite with a broken string. Under the terrifying recoil, the Yin Yang gods were severely injured and flew backward. At the same time, he spat out a mouthful of blood, which dyed the sky red. His strongest attack, which had gathered all his cultivation and all his strength, was so weak in front of Gu Xian. Qin Yang had never expected this. Qi. Just at that moment, after the golden finger of light engulfed the sword light, it continued to charge towards Qin Yang with unparalleled speed under Gu Xian's control. At that moment, countless people cried out in surprise. Everyone's gazes were focused on that astonishing finger. Heaven and earth dimmed, and the void became a vacuum. No, to be exact, it was a void. Everything was swallowed up. Only this golden finger existed between heaven and earth. It was as if it controlled heaven and earth and controlled all living things. Ah! Qin Yang, whose mind had been captured and the Yin Yang gods seriously injured, watched the golden finger radiance grow larger in his eyes. The shadow of death shrouded his body and mind. As a sword puppet, his pride and decisiveness made him make a choice in the shortest time possible. He screamed crazily and his primordial spirit left his body. Bang! Rumble! In the next moment, the golden finger radiance pierced through his forehead. Then his body exploded like a human bomb. His flesh and blood splattered and turned into ashes in the terrifying energy explosion. Senior brother. Miao Xian flew toward the arena with a bang sound. Her face was filled with extreme fear, and tears instantly filled her eyes. Qin Yang's past flowed in her heart. He doted on her like a real brother, loved her, led her and protected her. If she hadn't entered Zhulu Academy, Miao Xian wouldn't have known that her senior brother had always been stronger than her. However, she had only caught up with Qin Yang after the yin-yang fusion with the abnormal Chun Hao in the Emperor Star Secret Realm. But now, his physical body was destroyed. Qin Yang's primordial spirit, which had abandoned his physical body and escaped, immediately turned into a gust of wind and blended into the world. Please show mercy, Qin Yang admits defeat. At this moment, the Sword King, Chen Taishu, could no longer hold back. He rose into the air and called out. His voice directly condensed into a line, passing through the powerful seal and entering Gu Xian's ears. Chen Taishu was clear that even if Qin Yang's primordial spirit merged with the world, he would not be able to escape Gu Xian's pursuit in the relatively narrow space of the arena. Chi rays of finger light shot out from Gu Xian's hand. Sorry, it's too late. I've already used my ultimate move, and I can't take it back. I gave him a chance, but he didn't cherish it. He can't blame me. To me, it's nothing more than merging with all things in the world. No, senior brother. Miao Xuan shouted frantically. Unfortunately, she couldn't even get close to the barrier, let alone save Qin Yang. Boom. Rumble. A terrifying explosion occurred once again. Qin Yang's already heavily injured primordial spirit collapsed in a state of extreme fear and unwillingness. His primordial spirit was destroyed. The Sword King, Chen Taishu's expression darkened as he froze in the void. No matter what, he had never thought that his disciple Qin Yang would die in the competition. Moreover, he was killed by a cultivator of the same level as him. There was only sword in his heart and no woman. Therefore he, who had never had any children, regarded Qin Yang and Miao Xuan as his own. Therefore at this moment, even though he was a true immortal king, he was furious. What a ruthless kid, Chen Taishu said sternly. Although he tried his best to suppress his anger, the aura around him still became extremely terrifying in an instant. Clang, 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 buzz, buzz. At this moment, almost all the cultivators with swords on Zhulu Peak were shocked to the extreme as they felt the vibrations and roars of their swords in the space of their minds. For those with weaker cultivations, their swords flew out from between their eyebrows uncontrollably. In the immortal world, due to the live broadcast of the simulated aura, the same situation happened to the swords of the cultivators. Sword King. Million swords greeting. This is the aura of a real Sword King? It's too terrifying. Everyone was stunned as they stared in horror at the sword-like figure standing in the air. The King of Sword Kings. Even the Star River King stared at the Sword King Chen Taishu in surprise. He was sure that Chen Taishu had grown into a real Sword King. Even if the Sword King of the same generation as him was born, he could only avoid the attack. Otherwise, the scene of million swords greeting would not appear. It was only when the real Sword King's aura appeared that all the sword souls reacted. At this moment, a voice suddenly came into Chen Taishu's ears. Uncle, after the enchantment of the arena is activated, you can seal the space of the arena and seal all of Qin Yang's aura. Don't forget yourself. After all, you are one of the most powerful immortal emperors. You can't blame others for Qin Yang's death in a fair battle. Don't worry, I have a way to resurrect him. Chen Taishu was shocked and looked at the top 10 contestants in front of the arena. At the same time, he restrained his aura. However, Chen Hao was the same as the others. On the surface, there was nothing unusual. Uncle, don't look at me like that. Don't you trust me? Can you really do it? Of course, Xiaonan is a person who died once. His body and soul were destroyed. He was resurrected a long time after his death. At that time, he was in the Hongming domain. His aura did not dissipate much due to the concealment of heaven's secret. The enchantment of this arena also contains the qi of Hongmeng. There should be no problem. What should I do? You seal all of Qin Yang's aura and don't let it leak out. Buy me 2 more hours. That is to stop the battle and let me use the arena. As soon as possible, the sooner the better. Okay. After a brief moment of shock, Chen Taishu said straightforwardly. Although he did not know how Chen Hao could resurrect Qin Yang, he chose to believe him. Seal. Chen Taishu waved his hand, and extremely mysterious runes suddenly shot out. They were like rays of sword light, and they directly arrived above the arena. Then they poured down and formed a layer of light screen, sealing the arena. Brother Chen. Everyone was shocked, and the Celestial River King frowned slightly before shouting out. In everyone's opinion, the Sword King Chen Taishu might be angry out of shame. Ha ha, ha. This is one of the most powerful people in the great world of Xiandi, the new Sword King? You died in a fair battle. Are you going to violate the rules? Gu Xian said proudly in the arena. It seemed that he was not afraid at all. Chapter 1439. Brother Chen, I understand how you feel, but a competition is a competition. Brother Xiao, you misunderstood me. I don't want to violate the rules. I just don't want my disciple's aura to leak out. I need some time to resurrect my disciple. Is that okay? Chen Taishu, the Sword King, interrupted the Star River King. What? Chen Taishu's words shocked the Star River King and all the cultivators. Brother Chen, you said you can resurrect your disciple? I can't. Then you. My Tu Su should be able to. Tu Su? The Star River King didn't think much of it. Naturally, he knew who Tu Su was. Therefore, after hearing Chen Taishu's words, he looked directly at Chen Hao, who was sitting in the contestant's seat, with a look of surprise. He didn't think Chen Hao would talk nonsense at this time. That was to say, Chen Hao should really have this ability. I need about 2 hours. Members of the arbitration team, Brother Xiao, King Ying, I wonder if that's okay? Of course. It is said that only the powerhouses in the immortal emperor realm can resurrect a cultivator whose body and soul have been destroyed. Before this, the great world of Xiandi has never appeared. If Li Yuanjin can do it, resurrecting a genius like Qin Yang will undoubtedly be a good thing for the immortal emperor's grand thousand world. Secondly, it will also broaden our horizons, and perhaps we can gain some insights. The Star River King said without hesitation. He pointed out Chen Hao's name. Whoosh. At this moment, countless cultivators who didn't know who Chen Hao and Tu Su were in an uproar. They all looked at Chen Hao, who had returned to his original appearance, in surprise. It's him. Li Yuan of Dahua. I see. No wonder the Sword King went to Dahua before the competition. It turned out to be for Li Yuan. However, I'm afraid only a monster like Li Yuan is worthy of Miao Xian, who has the body of a sword emperor. I thought Miao Xian was the cultivation partner of her senior brother. I didn't expect it to be Li Yuan. Yes. Brother Fatty is the cultivation partner of the Sword King's disciple, Miao Xian? Awesome too awesome. Chun-si Wanishui, and that stunning beauty from Parkway Academy came knocking on my door. Fatty bro's luck with women is truly boundless. Brother Fatty. Cough cough, I'm just used to calling you that. Brother Fatty is so handsome that even heaven and earth can't tolerate it. Not to mention women, even I, as a man, am a little tempted. Fuck, so disgusting. However, only senior brother Li Yuan's heaven-defying talent could subdue so many peerless beauties. In short, being handsome is useless. Strength is everything. Of course. At this time, the students of Zhulu Academy and Hua Academy were buzzing with discussion. Many pairs of eyes fell on Chen Hao's handsome figure. Li Yuan's talent in the sword Dao is so strong. It must be related to Miao Xian's primordial yin. Miao Xian is so strong because of Li Yuan's dual cultivation. No wonder the two of them are so strong. How can we compare to a pair of strong cultivators when we are alone? Someone among the top 100 disciples said. Without a doubt, they were jealous of the combination of Chen Hao and Miao Xian. At the same time, he also found a reason why he was not as good as Chen Hao. As expected, Chen Shui, Helian Wuzi, Longting, Xia Yuyu, Tantai Lian, and the two teachers Ruolin and Ruoxian were not very surprised at this time. It just confirmed their guesses. But when did Brother Hao learn the supreme resurrection divine ability? Brother Hao should let me go, right? The little nurse Lu Hui said. Tracing the origin, reorganizing the life imprint and nirvana rebirth. This was the immortal emperor ability awakened by Lu Hui. Back then, when she saved Chen Nan, Du Jing, and Du Jing's Dao companion, Lin Xia, she had used it once. Now her realm was much higher than before. Moreover, in the sealed arena, she was confident that she could revive Qin Yang immediately. However, the premise was that Chen Hao's energy supply was still necessary. Otherwise, with her own energy, she could not revive Qin Yang in a short time. However, when Chen Hao calmly stepped into the arena's boundary under the eyes of tens of thousands of people, he did not call out to her. He only looked in her direction and nodded slightly. This meant that Chen Hao could do it himself. Lu Hui did not find it strange. In fact, she did not find it strange that Chen Hao could do anything. You can revive him? When Chen Hao calmly stepped into the arena under the eyes of tens of thousands of people, Gu Xian, who had killed Qin Yang, stared at Chen Hao condescendingly. His eyes were full of disdain and suspicion. In order to prevent Qin Yang's aura from leaking out, Gu Xian could not step out of the boundary set up by Chen Taishu after the seal on the arena was removed. Of course, this was also because Gu Xian did not ask to step out. Chen Hao turned his head and glanced at Gu Xian, but did not answer. He was blatantly ignoring him. Maybe you don't know what kind of divine ability I used? Not to mention that you are just a Daluo Jinxian who awakened the immortal emperor's inheritance. Even if you recovered to the real immortal emperor, you can't do it. Gu Xian snorted coldly. He was very unhappy with Chen Hao's disregard. Since ancient times, no one in the 9 heavens and 10 earths could ignore him. Even if he was just a small Daluo Jinxian at this moment, he could not do it. He dared to stand here, kill Qin Yang, and challenge Sword King Chen Taishu. Naturally, he had his own confidence. Is that so? Hearing Gu Xian's words, Chen Hao, who had already stepped past Gu Xian, stopped and turned his head to look at Gu Xian again. At this moment, his calm face revealed a touch of arrogance. You don't believe me? What if I can? Ha ha ha. Is it possible? Even before the war between the immortal realm, devil realm, and god realm, no one who was killed by my Nirvana Samsara finger could be revived. You? Gu Xian said proudly. Everyone was shocked to the core, and even the celestial river kings were no exception. What did the war between the immortal realm, devil realm, and god realm mean? Even the Star River King, the #1 expert in the great world of CND, knew very little about the war. There was no way to know what had happened that year that caused the death of all the immortal emperors. Gu Xian's words undoubtedly showed that he was the reincarnation of the immortal emperor and had experienced the war. This was undoubtedly an extremely shocking thing. Sure enough, he is the reincarnation of the immortal emperor and has fully awakened. It seems that even in the immortal realm, he was a powerful figure. Yes, no wonder he is so arrogant. It turns out that he is qualified to be arrogant. The shocked crowd buzzed and discussed in a buzz. Nirvana Samsara Finger? Some of the practitioners in the top 100, as well as a few practitioners in the Grand Mist Supremacy realm, were surprised by Gu Xian's unique skill. There was no doubt that these people had fully awakened the inheritance of the immortal emperor, including Kong Ying, who had been kicked out of the top 10. Chapter 1440. The Nirvana Samsara Finger is a unique skill of the celestial world that evolved from the combination of the Great Samsara skill and the Great Destruction skill. It's rated as a celestial master's unique skill. Nirvana Samsara Finger, only death and no life. Could Gu Xian be the reincarnation of a celestial master in the celestial world? The spirits of all living things who had fully awakened the inheritance of the celestial emperor looked at Gu Xian in shock. The Nirvana Samsara Finger was an extremely powerful unique skill in the celestial world. Ordinary celestial emperors would love to have it. Only the most powerful existences among the celestial emperors could obtain this unique skill and cultivate it successfully. A celestial master. A celestial master was a title given to almost invincible experts at the peak of the 9th level of the celestial emperor realm. Their status in the celestial world was the same as the emperor realm King Xing. He and King Ying in the great world of Xiandi. They had extremely terrifying power. In the past, only a dozen people in the celestial world had obtained this title. How could everyone not be shocked when Gu Xian used a celestial master's unique skill? If that's the case, Li Yuan can't revive Qin Yang. Everyone thought so. After a short pause, Chen Hao's expression did not change at all as he said coldly, "Just me." Haha, still stubborn? It seems that you are a spirit of all living things who has not fully awakened, right? Do you dare to bet with me? Gu Xian was slightly stunned and provoked him. Why wouldn't I dare? Chen Hao said calmly. Okay, if you lose, kneel in front of me and call me Grandpa 3 times. Gu Xian said mockingly. The way he looked at Chen Hao was as if he was looking at a prey in his hands. Even he did not expect Chen Hao to save Qin Yang, but it was undoubtedly a good thing that he could not ask for. Who had the most outstanding performance before? Who had gathered the attention of the entire the great world of Xiandi and become the focus of all the participants? It was Chen Hao. To be able to trample him under his feet under everyone's eyes was undoubtedly a very painful thing. And it was definitely something that gathered great luck. Even if this did not happen, Gu Xian would have trampled Chen Hao to death in the subsequent top 10 ranking competition in order to completely avoid Chen Hao's luck. To put it bluntly, this was just an appetizer for him. Kill. No matter who it was, he would kill whoever he met. Only by killing them would one obtain the greatest amount of luck. In this life, he who had fully awakened his inheritance was well aware of the importance of luck. Therefore, he ignored Sword King Chen Taishu's pleas and killed Qin Yang. What if you lose? Is it possible? But since it's a gamble, it's naturally fair. Good. You can leave now. After Chen Hao finished speaking, he went to the center of the stage. Let's wait and see, haha. Gu Xian said. When Chen Taishu heard Chen Hao's words, he directly pulled Gu Xian out of the arena. Gu Xian looked calm. He was not worried that Chen Taishu would do anything to him. Will it work? Miao Xian looked at Chen Hao, who was sitting cross-legged, as if he had become a different person. She was nervous and excited. What she was nervous about was whether or not Chen Hao could save Qin Yang. In her heart, Qin Yang was an existence closer to her than her own brother. No matter what, she didn't want Qin Yang to fall just like that. What was excited was Chen Hao at this moment. Miao Xian didn't feel anything about Chen Hao, who had returned to his original appearance. She already knew that when yin and yang merged. When she saw Chen Tianhe, it was even more vivid. What really made her feel excited was Chen Hao's expression and temperament at this moment. His calmness contained peerless arrogance and the air of a king looking down on the world. His calm, dark, and deep eyes were as if everything was under his control. That was the confidence that came from his bones. Others might not be able to see that, but she, who had merged yin and yang with Chen Hao for countless years, could clearly feel it. In short, at this moment, Chen Hao didn't have the scoundrel aura that she hated. It's just the Nirvana Samsara finger. It's just one of the many unique skills of the celestial venerables in the celestial world. Chen Hao, who was sitting cross-legged, looked cold. He couldn't help but say proudly in his heart. After saying that, an imperceptible look of realization appeared on his face. What's going on? That's not what I want, Chen Hao said proudly in his heart. No one knew that at this moment, he was extremely conflicted in the depths of his heart. Actually, when Gu Xian and Qing Yang were fighting, and he'd just executed the Samsara Nirvana finger, Chen Hao couldn't help but recall the name of this unique skill, the cultivation technique, and the highest profundity of it. At the same time, the method to break it appeared in his mind. It felt as if he'd awakened a memory that was sealed in the depths of his mind for an unknown period of time. If it was anyone else, they would surely be pleasantly surprised. But Chen Hao rejected this feeling, and he even felt an indescribable panic. Because it wasn't what he wanted. He'd said that he only wanted this lifetime. It was fine if he'd only awakened a unique skill inheritance, but if he'd even awakened his past memories, would he still be him? There was no answer, and he couldn't control it. A long time ago, Chen Hao had started to suspect that he wasn't simple. Others couldn't remember the outline of the Great Tao before they'd comprehended it, but he could remember it, and it even existed in his mind like a talisman. The mysterious magic treasure in his mind that was related to the old god, and he still couldn't control it. He was born with great luck and love. Lu Hui, the soul of all living things, and Helian Wuxia, the endless samsara cycle, had chosen him without hesitation, and had chosen this lifetime. There were so many incredible things. Did he really grow up as a mortal? Even Chen Hao himself didn't believe it. But all this while, except for those amazing things, he'd never awakened any inherited memories or unique skills. He'd worked hard step by step to get everything. But today, Gu Xian's Samsara Nirvana finger seemed to have awakened the memories hidden in his mind. I want to comprehend it with my own strength, Chen Hao said firmly in his heart. I don't want everything that's awakened, Master. But at this moment, the old god, who rarely spoke, suddenly spoke. There's something I don't know if I should say, the old god said in Chen Hao's mind. Then don't say it, Chen Hao said directly. He knew very well that the old god's words had something to do with his awakened memories. Cough, cough. The old god was speechless. He coughed twice and said directly, Master, don't be like this. I just feel that whether it's awakening or enlightenment, it's all your comprehension. It's yours. Why do you have to reject it? You're you. Whether it's the past life, the present life, or the next life, it's all you. It's just time and space that changes, but your true self is eternal. Is it? What you said makes sense and I know it, but I just don't like this feeling. That's because you're afraid, Master. It's a kind of fear that comes from the depths of your heart. It's the fear of the past life. Chapter 1441. If a person cannot face their past, if they do not dare to face their past, how can they truly control their present life? The past you are you, the present you are you, and the future you will still be you. This is a fact that cannot be changed. If you abandon any one of them, you will still be incomplete. The old divinity said in a low voice. His voice didn't contain any supernatural powers, only pure words. But at this moment, fear, is it fear? Face the past, abandon any one of them. I am incomplete. Chen Hao's mind was in tumultuous waves. He repeated the old divinity's words over and over again. These words were simple, direct, and easy to understand. Chen Hao knew and understood them, but he never knew where he was wrong. But when the old divinity said the word fear, it was like a slap to the head, rousing Chen Hao from his reverie. Fear. Yes, it was fear. Chen Hao was someone who was filled with arrogance. How could he admit that he was afraid? And how could he believe that he was afraid of the past or his previous life? But now, Chen Hao's so-called insistence that he only wanted this life was nothing more than the fear in the depths of his heart towards the unknown past and uncertain future. You are you in your past life. You are you in your present life, and you will still be you in your next life. The only thing that changes is time and space. The true self is eternal and will never change. The so-called true self is the mark of the source of life. Li Yuan will lose for sure. That's right, it's clear that he can't trace the source. How can an empyrean lost art be broken by the average person? Those killed by the Nirvana Samsara finger cannot be traced back to the source and revived by an ordinary empyrean. Even if they were sealed in this space, it would still be useless. I never imagined that an empyrean-level spirit of all creation would appear. With this Gu Xian's strength, there isn't much suspense in him winning the championship. That's too early to say. You've all seen that he is strong in the empyrean lost arts and his state of mind. But his absolute strength isn't strong. This is a fatal weakness that no lost art can make up for. That's true. However, no matter what, Li Yuan will definitely have to kneel down and call him Grandpa. Haha, just thinking about it makes me excited. This is the result of being high profile. Some of the spirits of all living things who had already awakened discussed without restraint, especially the spirits of all living things in the top 100. They did not hide anything. Without a doubt, it was because of jealousy. At this moment, when they saw Li Yuan, who was originally in the lead, fall into deep thought, they very much hoped to see the high and mighty Li Yuan, who was in the limelight, make a fool of himself. Serves you right. Previously, he had been in the limelight and attracted the attention of the world. Now that he had fallen flat on his face, he deserved it. Otherwise, he would really think that he was invincible. Laozi despised this kind of people the most. Let's see if he still has the face to stay here and make a fool of himself after he kneels down and calls Brother Gu his grandfather. Brother Gu, if I'm not wrong, even if you're not the reincarnation of a celestial venerable, you're still an existence that's infinitely close to the celestial venerable. Moreover, you're closely related to a certain celestial venerable, right? Haha, I believe that the first place this time will definitely belong to you, Brother Gu. The other two monstrous geniuses who were also in the top 10 were also gloating and trying to curry favor with Gu Xiandao. Shut up. Miao Xian, who was in the top 10, finally couldn't stop herself from exploding. An incomparably sharp sword intent directly enveloped the two people. Wei Wufa and Zhang Yuanzhao were the two weaker ones among the successful challengers. Shut up. Who do you think you are? Not to mention you. Even your master doesn't have the right to make us shut up. We are free to say whatever we want. Miao Xian, right? No matter what, you have the body of a sword emperor. Moreover, you're quite beautiful. Even if you're not the reincarnation of a celestial emperor, when the great era descends, you still have a high chance of becoming a celestial emperor. Why did you take a fancy to Li Yuan and let him ruin you so early? Otherwise, you're still qualified to be my concubine. Gu Xiandao said as he stared at the furious Miao Xian with an evil gaze. Yes. After losing her body of primordial Yin, she's not even qualified to be Brother Gu's maid. However, I don't mind. After all, she's still a talented beauty. Haha. Wei Wufa said lecherously. Although his gaze was not lecherous, in order to curry favor with Gu Xiandao, who might be the reincarnation of a celestial emperor, he was not stingy with his malicious words. Miao Xian was so angry that her delicate body trembled. However, she knew that not only was she not Gu Xuandao's opponent, it was even more impossible for her to make a move at this time. Facing such a shameless person, all she could do was endure. Endure. Endure until her internal organs burned. Endure until her silver teeth were broken, and she swallowed them into her stomach. She could only endure. A terrifying sword intent surged inside Miao Xian's body. At this moment, she, who had never felt weak, only hated herself for being too weak. She was so weak that she could not even threaten him, because if she did, it would be a joke. She had never been so eager to become strong. She wanted to become incomparably strong. She wanted to ignore all rules and smash these scum into pieces. However, she knew that all of this was still very far away from her. Now the only thing in front of her that was related to the life and death of senior brother Qingyang was Chen Hao. Was it hope or despair? Miao Xian's eyes were almost bleeding. She once again looked at the figure who was sitting cross-legged with his eyes closed in contemplation. For the first time, she placed her hope on someone else. Someone who had her but did not belong to her. I understand now. Chen Hao, who seemed to be pondering the method to save Qing Yang with his eyes closed, suddenly took a deep breath and slowly opened his eyes as he muttered to himself. Immediately, the heavenly eye on Chen Hao's forehead reappeared. Rays of dazzling golden light bloomed. He stood up and looked up at the endless void. Open! Chen Hao suddenly exhaled and opened his arms. The dazzling golden light from the heavenly eye did not scatter in all directions. Instead, it gathered into a golden light column and shot up to the sky. Swoosh! The seal of the arena was silently pierced through, but there were no signs of it collapsing. At this moment, the world seemed to come to a standstill, and the endless Tao laws stopped tumbling. Above the void, a golden door of light appeared. A door formed from countless complex ancient runes. This door seemed to be connected to the 9 heavens and 10 earths, opening up the endless starry sky. In an instant, a 7-colored energy that made all the cultivators, including the Star River King, Prince Ing, and other top experts, shudder, rolled out from the golden door of light and poured down. It was like a rainbow piercing the sun. It was beautiful and fantastical. What? How is this possible? Immortal Qi. Immortal Qi, the real immortal Qi. Immortal Qi, only the immortal realm has immortal Qi. The real immortal Qi. He has connected the immortal realm? How is this possible? How is this possible? At this moment, all the spirits of all things that had already awakened paled in shock. They widened their eyes and opened their mouths. They stared blankly at the rainbow-colored energy that poured down from the 9 heavens. They could not be any more shocked. Chapter 1442. The gate of the 3 realms of immortals, demons, and gods had been closed. The real immortal Qi did not exist in any of the great 1,000 worlds. Occasionally, a little bit of it could be found, but it was left in the sealed ancient ruins. This was the real reason why no one could climb the Emperor's celestial ladder to become a celestial emperor after the War of the 3 Realms. How could one become a celestial emperor in a great 1,000 world without real immortal Qi? But now, Chen Hao had connected the immortal realm and received real immortal Qi. Unbelievable! A great era is coming. Could it be that the gate of the immortal realm has been loosened? Otherwise, it would be impossible to receive immortal Qi. Gu Xian frowned. It must be so. Such pure immortal Qi is undoubtedly from the immortal realm. This Li Yuan does not seem to be as simple as we thought. Humph, he is indeed not simple. However, he can connect the immortal realm and receive immortal Qi to revive Qing Yang, who was killed by my Nirvana Samsara finger. Dream on. Of course. Brother Gu is the reincarnation of a celestial venerable. How can Li Yuan be compared to you? Wei Wufa and Zhang Yuanzhao hurriedly flattered. Who would have thought that the celestial venerable, the reincarnation of a celestial emperor, would have such a face? But this was the truth. The immortal realm was not different from the great 1,000 worlds. There was a distinction between high and low. The celestial emperor, in the great world of Xiandi, was an existence that everyone looked up to. However, in the immortal realm, they were very ordinary. In the face of a celestial venerable, who was a lofty existence in the immortal realm, there were many celestial emperors who were willing to follow them. Immortal Qi. This is immortal Qi, the real immortal Qi? This Li Yuan can connect the immortal realm. The Star River King's divine sense had already covered the whole space, paying attention to all the practitioners who might be the celestial venerable. At this moment, when he felt the 7-colored energy pouring down, he was even more shocked when he heard the discussion of Gu Xian and the others. If I can absorb, comprehend, and refine this immortal Qi, my cultivation will be able to reach a higher level. Then, does that mean that I can become a celestial emperor? Good boy, no matter what, I have to take him down. Gu Xian and the others could not be spared either. Immortal emperor, humph, in the great world of Xiandi, the first person to be conferred the title of immortal emperor can only be me, Xiao Xinghe. The celestial river king stared at the 7-colored immortal Qi with scorching eyes as he thought to himself. Condense. Chen Hao's tongue bloomed like a lotus flower as he spoke the word condense, and then his hands abruptly danced about like moving clouds and flowing water. His sparkling and translucent fingers instantly transformed into numerous afterimages. And no one was able to clearly see how swift his hand speed was because no one present knew what divine ability or talisman Chun Hao had condensed. The only thing he could feel was the endless mysterious aura and the unimaginably complicated trajectories. It was like the hand of the heavens that was evolving the process of the birth of life. The mysterious and profound aura merged with the immortal qi and filled the entire arena. Unite, trace to the origin, return to your position. 1. When numerous complicated and profound runes filled every inch of space in the arena, Chun Hao's clear and cold voice resounded once again. In an instant, all the runes that seemed to exist independently actually miraculously combined into a whole in an instant. Their auras were connected, and they depended on each other. At this moment, endless vitality and spiritual qi of heaven and earth gushed out from between Chun Hao's eyebrows. Vitality was the purest life force of the tree of life. Spiritual qi of heaven and earth was the spiritual qi of heaven and earth from the spiritual spring sea that was many times purer than before. What a terrifying strength. This Li Yuan is really unfathomable. When he merged with Chen Tianhe earlier, we all thought that was his strongest strength. But now he clearly didn't have time to merge with Chen Tianhe, and the strength he displayed has definitely more than doubled. Yes, he's too strong. It seems that Yu Guxian may not necessarily win. The divine power that Chun Hao displayed at this moment shocked even the top experts of the true Celestial King realm, let alone ordinary cultivators. This was because it was definitely a peerless divine power that had surpassed the limits of one's cultivation level. Although they didn't recognize it, they could guess that it should be similar to Gu Xian's Nirvana Samsara finger, which originated from the immortal world. It's useless. Nirvana Samsara. Even if you use the Great Samsara technique, you still have to have a target to reincarnate with. Everything about him has already been annihilated by my Nirvana ultimacy. Unless your understanding of the Nirvana ultimacy surpasses mine. But that's impossible. Not many people in the immortal world can surpass my Nirvana ultimacy, Gu Xian said coldly. Of course, Chun Hao couldn't hear him, but he still said it. Was it arrogance, or was it to encourage himself? Only he knew. Nirvana. But at this moment, Chun Hao spat out another word. Then, an aura that made Gu Xian's expression turn extremely ugly bloomed from Chun Hao's body. He was clearly in front of Gu Xian, but he seemed to be far away on the horizon. In an instant, he disappeared completely. Even the aura of the entire arena disappeared completely. The immortal qi that came from the immortal world was also completely cut off, integrated into the arena, and disappeared. There was only a deathly silence. Brother Hao is so powerful, the young nurse Lu Hui said excitedly. Regardless of whether it was the divine power that traced back to the origin to revive Qin Yang, or the Nirvana light ultimacy, she had used them in front of Chun Hao before. However, at this moment, when Chun Hao used them, they were many times more powerful than hers. It was also at this moment that she realized that Gu Xian wasn't exaggerating. If it were her, it would be impossible for her to revive Qin Yang. How could this be? Gu Xian sensed that the arena had completely disappeared without a trace of aura. It was as if it was completely dead, and he was shocked. Others might not know what was going on, but he and some of the fully awakened spirits of all creation knew very well that Chun Hao had used the extremely powerful Nirvana ultimacy, and it had filled the entire arena. They couldn't sense his aura, and there was only dead silence. This meant that Chun Hao's understanding of the Nirvana ultimacy was not inferior to his. Impossible, absolutely impossible. How could his understanding of the Nirvana ultimacy be stronger than mine? Gu Xian muttered to himself with an ugly expression. He had clearly lost his cool. Wei Wufa and Zhang Yuanzhao looked at Gu Xian's expression and felt faintly uneasy. What would it mean if Gu Xian lost? It would definitely not be as simple as kowtowing and calling him grandfather. More importantly, they thought that Gu Xian, who was the reincarnation of a heavenly lord and was countless times stronger than Li Yuan, might not be as good as Li Yuan. Even though the result was not out yet, the two of them were a little regretful that they had taken sides a little too early. Under the gaze of tens of thousands of people, after a full hour, the arena was empty. Suddenly, A soaring sword intent gushed out from the deathly silent arena. Clang. Clang, 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 clang. When this sword intent spread out, the wind and clouds surged in an instant. The power of heaven and earth actually automatically condensed into streaks of sword light, letting out a clear and loud sword cry. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.